and welcome back to the SWC group stages. One set down, two more to go. I'm J-Mac. Got Mifflin joining me here on this. We get ready to hop into our second one. It's the Camelot Kings and the Solar Scarabs. Going to be facing off all of our first four matches. They're going to be the SPL versus SCC, and then we'll get to see maybe some of the SPL versus SPL, maybe some of the SCC versus SCC elimination matches, potentially later down the road. But if you're kind of unfamiliar as to how this entire event works, what everybody's playing for, we can kind of give you a little bit of an inside scoop on that one. So for our first 2 days of play, today and tomorrow on Friday, it'll be best of 3 matchups for all of our teams here. Will not be elimination for those immediate matchups. Instead, it's a double elimination bracket. We have our top 4 SPL teams and our top 2 SCC from both EU and NA playing here in 2 separate groups, and we'll be taking the top 2 teams from each of these groups, and they'll be qualifying to the SMITE World Championship. That said, for all of our matches today and tomorrow will be best of 3, but then all of our qualifier matchups will be best of 5. So make sure you're tuning in all 4 days, and then at the end of day Sunday, we'll take all 4 of the teams that have already qualified to Worlds, that being the Ferrymen, the Leviathans, the Dragons, and the Warriors, and they'll get to draft who their opponent is going to be at that SWC World stage. So make sure you're even tuning in even beyond just the actual play of the event and at the very end of the day Sunday. So still some exciting matches to go. Again, we're only here on day number 1. No elimination up just yet, but this should be a fun match, especially with some of the players that we have on here. We can kind of show a look at the bracket as the matchup you've already seen or may have just missed out on. It's the Highland Ravens taking a 2-0 over the Xibalba Storms. Now the Highland Ravens 1 set away from advancing to the SWC. Xibalba Storm now on the losers bracket, awaiting their opponent between the Gilded Gladiators and Hex Mambo. However, we can jump over to Group B and now see what our second round and our second group is going to consist of. And as mentioned, the 2 teams that were behind us there on the screen, Camelot Kings and Solar Scarabs, will be the first match over in Group B, and then the Eldritch Hounds and Callan Wardens, I believe, will be our first match tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Winner of this match jumps up into the higher end of the bracket, is 1 set away from qualifying to Worlds, and then the loser of that one will wait for their opponent on that next match there. And I think this is one that maybe a lot more people have their eyes on, because if you go back to the history of just last year, Mifflin, EUSCC was the dominant. They were the powerhouse players coming from the amateur side. We're able to knock out 2 SPL teams. We had 2 EUSCC teams at Worlds last year, so I think a lot of eyes are here on the Solar Scarabs and then later on in our day on Hex Mambo as well.
Yeah, and there's a lot of veteran talent, and some of those players that were competing at Worlds last year have made their way to the studio again this year to try and earn their opportunity to do it again. So I think the EUSCC is certainly a force not to be reckoned with. Don't reckon. Is that how that phrase works?
I think they are a force to be reckoned.
Yeah, you should definitely reckon with that force, because these guys are a force, and they reckon. I reckon that.
They're no slouch of a team, I think is another way that you can say.
Thank God for you, J-Mac.
The Solar Scarabs are definitely a team that you want to keep your eyes on, and they have some names that you've probably been familiar with if you've been watching old-time SPL or if you've just been keeping track of the SCC in general. I mean, Solar Scarabs, their Soul Laner Deathwalker, probably one of the most verbose players that have jumped over from the Soul Lane into the SCC. You have Apreel there in the jungle, Zyrhoes, iSilenced, and Echrome for the rosters of the Solar Scarabs, and I think that this has been a team, while not necessarily capping at the top of the EU SCC, have kind of had a little bit of back and forth over the course of the phase. Even when you look in the qualifiers, some hot matches, some cold matches, and I think it really kind of depends on when Apreel, when Zyrhoes are able to get themselves online. When we think of the EU SCC style of play, these guys kind of embody the old mindset of we're going to play the game a little bit slower than some of the other squads.
And you can see that a bit in some of the god selections that Zyrhoes in particular goes for. Zyrhoes is the type of dude who's going to play things like Kronos given the opportunity. He'll play things like Jingwei in mid. Recently has added things like Chang'e to that list. So a bit off kilter from the standardized meta, but still certainly well within the means of their own personal team identity. You're right as well to bring up Apreel. He has been, for my money, the battery behind this squad. Seems to me at times he's playing those early game hyper aggressive picks and things are just going real easy for the Solar Scarabs, and then other times decides to join that late game spree, and still similarly pretty easy for the Solar Scarabs, but just a little bit more late game slanted. It's a team that has been very, very adaptable, but was also a team that was very likely to go towards mage solos. I feel like even in the SCC qualifiers for Europe, we saw a lot more warriors, and that was before we saw some of the buffs of warrior itemization. So I wonder if maybe Deathwalker spent a lot of time practicing those mages, if he's still got some of those warriors in the back pocket.
I mean, even in just this highlight, you can see over on the side, Deathwalker's playing like Hera solo. Nobody else is playing Hera solo, let alone really Hera in general, unless your name is Dardes, pretty much. So it's one of those things that, at least with Deathwalker, that we've noticed over the course of even just his time in career, is he's always cooking up something. You never know what it's going to be. Is he going to bring the Mulan out of nowhere whenever nobody is even thinking that god exists at this point. Is he going to be bringing back, you know, Bellona Osiris men in the solo? You never know with players like Deathwalker, and you never really know with this Solar Scarabs roster. So I'm curious to see what their kind of take on the current meta is, because we saw in our first set, Made Solo seems to be out of it. It seems that the Warriors are back and firm in their place in the solo lane. I wonder if that's true. Well, and that's what I'm wondering is how this goes with the rest of the weekend. If is it just that one set that they thought, okay, Mage is not that great, or is that the trend that we're going to continue to see?
I mean, Warriors are in a pretty decent spot right now. I mean, we've seen them dominating the ranked scene, at least here in North America. So there is certainly value to that class, which is not something you could have said even 3 weeks ago, or the last time we got to see competitive play. So maybe Warriors are just it in the solo lane for now, but I don't know. Even with the Typhon's nerfs, with some of those Mage nerfs, it feels like maybe Raijin could still work at least a little bit.
Well, maybe we can hear a little bit about the solo lane meta, because we have the solo laner for the Solar Scarabs, Deathwalker, standing by with Frog for our pregame interview.
That's right. We've got Deathwalker standing by. You look nice, by the way. Thank you. Yeah, you look very good. Normally, I almost expected you to come out with a suit, but you guys, I got to talk about the path here, right? You guys obviously fought through the EU SEC playoffs, right, and had a pretty big battle between the Niflheim Wargs, right, to really take that final spot. How is the team feeling coming into this weekend, and how has the battle here has affected you guys? Like, is it just business as usual? You've obviously been here before, but bringing a lot of maybe new talent to the studio here.
Yeah, for April and Jake, this is their first LAN. Jake being iSilenced, of course. It's, you know, usually iSilenced, he has been, you know, dodging some LANs. I think he's like sort of infamous maybe in the EU SEC scene for that, but he actually showed up. He's ready to play. He said he's feeling good after throwing up 2-3 times. April's been feeling good. In general, I would say we're feeling pretty confident. For solo lane specifically, I would say I think maybe I'm missing the mark with the meta, but unfortunately, you know, it is what it is. We'll just whip something out.
Yeah, I mean, definitely some interesting changes here for the Worlds patch. Obviously, that EU SEC playoffs you guys played on the previous patch, some big changes here. We just saw some Warriors in the last matchup. What's your take on the meta generally? Do you guys feel like you're coming out with a plan, or is it just going to be like adapt as they come?
No plan, definitely. We screamed a grand total of 3 times, and we probably rated more in World of Warcraft than we played Smite. I'll just probably like play Bellona or something, and I mean, there's like maybe some mages too. You know, you could play, but I don't know.
Coming out completely winging it. Well, I mean, it's gone well for you in the past. So, I mean, this is a tough group, though, you're in, and a tough matchup to start the day, right? Going up against the Camelot Kings. How are you guys feeling about the matchup in general and against the Kings specifically? I mean, it's a tough matchup.
I don't even know who Quig is.
Thank you so much, Deathwalker. Good luck in your matches today. We'll throw it back to J-Mac on the desk.
Wow.
I love that guy.
That was a statement.
That guy's going to Worlds.
We're going to see a second Deathwalker Worlds appearance in a row from the SEC.
No one else on that team's ever getting an interview. I will see to it that is the case.
I do got to throw out, mention that only scrimmed a few times, hasn't played nearly as much as they maybe had wanted to or maybe hoped to coming into this one. But also kind of throwing a little bit towards iSilenced. I think he's right to say the last few teams that have made it to a qualifier, whether it be Masters, whether it be Worlds, having iSilenced on the team has been able to make it. So him being here now with the team, we're going to see kind of a whole look as to how a team can perform at their top performance here. But up against the Solar Scarabs has been a team that's been struggling a little bit over the course of really this entire year to really find their footing, which has been the Camelot Kings. And I think it's the easiest way to point that, the right side of the map, the jungle solo, has been where the real struggle has come for this Camelot Kings team. But we're starting to see a bit more consistency. Quig has started to find his place over in the dual lane as their support, had to step in midway through the year, replacing Genetics in this case, and has really started to kind of find some identity along with Jarcorrr, along with BMT. So I wonder now for the Camelot Kings what their adaptations to this meta is and how they're going to try and play up against the Scarabs.
And J-Mac, keep me honest here. It's been about, 40 some odd days since we'd last seen them play, so maybe the Camelot Kings have been able to right the ship a bit. I agree with you that solo lane and jungle in particular, has really been where some of those struggles are. CaptainTwig has not been going according to the rest of the jungle meta. What he plays is slightly different than every other jungler in the SPL. Maybe with some of the itemization changes most recently since the last round of competitive play, his gods could be in a better position now than they have been previously. We'll have to see. But what has been working for the Camelot Kings, what has been consistent for them from the beginning of the year, during their Worlds run, with the Genetics machinations at play, with the most mismanaged roster swap of all time in Smite history, one thing has been a consistent win factor for the Camelot Kings, and it's something that I think doesn't get enough praise. BigManTingz out of mid is one of the best mage players in the league, full stop. When people talk about, who's the GOAT, who's the mid mage guy, a lot of people immediately go to Paul. They say it's got to be Paul. I mean, have you seen his world performance? It's this, that, or the other. But all the while, BigManTingz is out there putting up insane numbers consistently and has not been given the same level of praise. So I got to get on my soapbox now and say, if anyone wants to knock out the Camelot Kings, you can look to either continue to exploit the weaknesses that we've seen, or you can shut them down where they're strongest, and that's in the center of the map.
I think you're right to bring up BigManTingz specifically for this team. I mean, has been playing a lot of the traditional mages, even when hunters were a big thing in the mid lane, when assassins were jumping over. BMT stuck to what he was good at, and it has been those mage plays. Hasn't strayed too far from kind of the norm, but does have some of those older pocket picks. When nobody else was playing Kukulkan, it was him and CaptainTwig running Cuckoo Naja as a combo, and they were winning with those ones. And that was kind of some of their old tried and true combos that really worked out for this team. And sometimes just returning back to the old style of play is something that can work, especially when metas are kind of shifting up as much as they may have coming into this new kind of patch going up and towards Worlds. So I'm curious to see what their change-ups are going to be from this, 40-some-odd day gap. I believe it was the week before Thanksgiving was the last time that we saw the Camelot Kings. We've got a whole 2 holidays, actually 3 technically holidays since then, and are now in a brand new year. So it has been some time since we've seen the Camelot Kings. So it's been a lot of time for them to sit down, get their scrims practicing, and see exactly what it is they want to bring out this weekend.
And I think a lot of this set is going to be decided in P's and B's. We heard it from Deathwalker himself. He says the Solar Scarabs, or maybe just himself, doesn't exactly have a solid lock on where the meta is right now. I was listening to them a bit as they were watching that last set. So, they were surprised by some of the selections that we had seen. So it could be that the Solar Scarabs struggle a little bit here in P's and B's. But with the Camelot Kings as they have been in their current iteration, this has been a team that has been largely dictated by the compositions that they draft. If they have a draft that is within their wheelhouse, they can generally just play to that high level of macro that we've become accustomed to seeing from them, farm out well, and then meet you in the team fight phase and play well around the strengths of their composition. But we've also seen teams just completely eviscerate the Camelot Kings in P's and B's, and all of a sudden their draft falls apart entirely. So I'll be keeping my eyes very much so in the next few minutes.
And I think one thing that I've also just noticed is a general trend, with the EU scene, with the ESCC, and even with some of the EU standard style teams like the Camelot Kings, is they're willing to kind of let the first 20-25 minutes of the game go and then see what happens when you get to that first big team fight. But we've also seen just from those SCC qualifiers, a few weeks back, almost a month at this point back, that we were seeing those ones, where sometimes if you wait for that one big team fight, it's game over when it happens. It's 25 minutes or 30 minutes of absolutely nothing happening, one big team fight hits, and the entire game is over at that point. So I wonder if we see teams maybe try and draft to the strength of a late game team fight and try and push a little bit further, or if we do see some of those draft towards a bit more the early game, so that way if you kind of push a little bit to that later game, maybe you have a better chance and have a little bit more of a lead at that point.
And generally, you can get an idea of what type of composition the Kings are going to go for early as opposed to late, dependent on that soul lane selection. If it's generally a late game composition, we'll see Variety play something like Cerberus out of the soul lane, these large AoE facilitators, essentially a secondary support, and then they run a double support composition and have BMT absolutely dominate 35 minutes in. We've seen that strategy a whole lot from the Camelot Kings, and it's one that I like seeing from them. Otherwise, we see what has become maybe a concerning trend for Camelot Kings fans, which is the hyper-aggressive jungle solo matchup where they're both just kind of hanging out on the right side of the map. That seems to me to be where the Camelot Kings have struggled in the past. There's been plenty of times since we've last seen them play. Maybe they've got some new strategies.
We can jump into the picks and bans for Game 1 between the Solar Scarabs and the Camelot Kings. Best of 3. You're on day number 1 for these two teams. No elimination for either of these squads just yet, but winning this one means you're now only one set away from potentially qualifying up into the SMITE World Championship. So getting your best foot forward is the name of the game for all of these teams in these first couple of days of play. First few bans. Kukulkan, no surprise, has been the top mage for quite some time now out of the mid lane. And Aphrodite, which has seemed to have, at the halfway point of the year, going into Masters, everybody's playing Aphrodite, everybody's banning this one away. And then it got quiet with Aphro for a while. A couple of players here and there, notably players like Awesome Jake, Quig, really kind of still sticking with this PVM as well. but now has kind of re-risen back up to being one of those top support picks.
Yeah, Aphrodite, similar to Yamoja, just makes it so miserable to play the laning phase for the first 7 levels. Every bit of poke you do is going to be immediately answered by the Aphrodite. She's got decent wave clear as well, the protection share, having a second set of beads essentially once you tick over to level 5, all make it very difficult to lane against that god. So no surprise to me that the Solar Scarabs have taken notice and decided to avoid playing against her. Maman Brigitte will join in that banned column. The Solar Scarabs in first pick with a lot of options available. In the previous set, we saw Thor prioritize very heavily here. I think jungle priority in a decent spot, but you don't need to pick Thor in first slot when CaptainTwig's on the other side. Twig just does not play that pick whatsoever. Of the global jungles available, I could see Twig maybe grabbing Rat in this position. Otherwise, we could see him fall back towards some of his tried and true standards, things like the Naja, things like the Lancelot, or even maybe, if you're feeling crazy, Fenrir as well.
Has had some Hun Bats as well.
That's right. He's one of the better bots players.
He's been around the scene for a long time playing that god. It's one of his better picks, but you're right to call out the Ratatoskr. So far, a semi-global and a full global presence in the Chernobog, but Chernobog's eaten some nerfs over the course of the last couple of patches. Maybe not quite the top hunter selection, but always having that global threat now for the Camelot Kings. And it was a top pick Hachiman, which is an interesting one to see in that first pick, considering how highly prioritized gods like Thor was in the very first set of matchups. Maybe could have been something that Solar Scarabs went to, but maybe kind of in that same vein that you were saying, not something that CaptainTwig goes to. I think even, in fact, we had an interview with CaptainTwig after a Thor game, said I hadn't played in a couple years, and there's probably a reason I hadn't played in a couple of years. It wasn't my best performance, but still able to find a win throughout that one. So now, for the Solar Scarabs, a bit of that late game really starting to show just in these two hovers. Ganesh plus Hachiman for a dual lane. Not an insane amount of kill pressure over there, and then a Baba Yaga. Definitely one of those ideal late game scalers for the EU teams.
Yeah, but what the Solar Scarabs dual lane does bring is a lot of objective burn potential. The ability for them at level 5 to utilize Heavenly Banner to boost attack speed, as well as the Dharmic Pillars to just shred Gold Fury, with the help of a jungler, could turn this into an objective-focused team. So I'll be keeping my eyes on jungle selection for the Solar Scarabs, likely to be limited a bit by the Camelot Kings in the second phase of bans. Speaking of the Camelot Kings, I mean, globals were the name of the year. Season 10 is the global year. We've seen it in the jungle, we've seen it in the dual lane, and it's going to continue here for the Camelot Kings. Chernobog, I thought maybe we had seen his last day in the sun with some of the most recent nerfs. Goes completely foregone in the first set of the day. Kings showed some respect, and honestly, 10 seconds off the ultimate, I don't think that's enough of a nerf to remove Chernobog from the meta. So keep your eyes on him. Has the ability to split the map entirely. Rat, the exact same ability. And then BigManTingz, the guy that we talked about a whole lot during the reel a little bit earlier on, gets one of his signature picks with that Vulcan. Best objective secure on the map, as well as incredibly good objective burn potential. I think Vulcan goes a bit overlooked in that department. That turret just makes it so easy to look towards Gold Fury or Pyromancer throughout the early mid-game.
Sylvanus will be the next pick for the Camelot Kings. Taking a look at the bans, Dachi, Susano, so both targeted over towards Apreel. And then a couple of soul lane bans. Achilles on the rise, so Achilles gets banned out by the Scarabs, along with Nike, which I've been seeing some Nike ban. There was some Nike pick when we had the the SCC qualifiers, especially over in the NA side. We're kind of going towards this one, so I wonder what it is that the Solar Scarabs see in that pick specifically that they don't want to maybe fight up against. Maybe it's not the best ways to try and deal with the Nike for what maybe they want to draft. Maybe to be determined as we wait to see for the remainder there. But a Sylvanus from the Camelot Kings is another one of those picks that hasn't really had a place in the meta. There's been a couple of players who have flexed over towards it. I think players
Quig,
like PBM,
Inbound.
Quig, Inbound, whenever he was in the Pro League as well, would kind of go towards that. But what is it with the Sylvanus in this composition so far that maybe kind of makes this guy a good selection for the Kings?
It feels to me just like a comfort pick. You're still bringing sustain over, so if the fight goes a little bit longer, you're feeling decent about those opportunities, but it's hard to say. Sylvanus is just a flavor pick for the most part. We don't see it often because it's not at the top of the meta by any stretch of the imagination. Does have good guaranteed initiation, does have sustain and team fight, good pressure in the laning phase as well, so should be the Camelot Kings' favor in the 2v2, at least for the first 7 or 8 levels until that Sylvanus starts to rotate out. But one of the primary weaknesses of Sylvanus, and this was true from release until now, is that he is very susceptible to early ganks. Levels 5 through 9 can be miserable to exist as Sylvanus, and Nemesis is one of the better picks at really exploiting Sylvanus. The multitude of slows, the defense shred makes it very easy now for the Solar Scarabs to jump on this god and make it very difficult to exist. So I'll be keeping my eyes on him. Quig's got plenty of time piloting this pick. We know he's got a lot of experience on it, but also, I mean, the composition around him doesn't exactly help in the peel department either. If Sylvanus is caught, he's alone.
One pick that feels like it kind of got willed into existence, Bellona for the Solar Scarabs. You know,
he said it.
I kind of alluded to it, and then at the end of the interview, I was like, maybe I just play some Bellona. I don't know. And well, now we know he's gonna play Bellona, come along with the Nemesis that you were mentioning, up against Sylvanus. So for the Kings, what would their final picks be? Currently hovering Surtur, which has had a lot of ups and downs over the course of his existence here in Season 10. So we'll have to see exactly what it is the Camelot Kings maybe see in the pick, maybe what they initially want to kind of go towards themselves. I mean, Surtur does offer a lot of damage. You can get that first ability, really get the stacks built up early over in that solo lane. Then late game, you walk up to a carry and you do a third or more of his HP in a single tap. Nice and easy way if you want to try and dive a backliner.
I agree, but looking at the composition as it is, would you prefer to see Surtur jungle or would you prefer to see him solo? With Rat already locked in, I might favor Surtur jungle in that position. Lots of damage output, great initiation, good ganks, and then Rat just holds his own a little bit better in the soul lane for my liking. Able to get up in the air just a little bit faster, has some of that sustain built in. So there are opportunities for flexibility. We don't know for a fact yet whether or not that Surtur is locked in as we start to get back into P's and P's, but I think if that is the case, maybe the Camelot Kings can evaluate some of those opportunities on whether or not that's something they want to play. But it's CaptainTwig out of the jungle. Twig generally likes to stick to his standard. Haven't seen a whole lot of Surtur from him. So if it is going to be that Surtur pick, I think, even though I would prefer to see it in the jungle, likely is slated for solo.
Yeah, when I think of junglers for CaptainTwig specifically, you know, gods he likes to go towards, it's mostly those traditional assassins. Occasionally when, you know, you'd see some of the mage jungles pop in, you know, the Hebos, the Mamons occasionally kind of jump over there. Don't really see too many of the warriors. We do have a very small remake in the lobby, so we'll be able to get to the picks and bans here once again in just a moment to see what that final pick is for the Camelot Kings. That's Surtur, as mentioned, not locked in just yet, so still...
Did you see that guy in the cams, by the way?
I did not.
Dude, that iRaffer's in the building right now.
That is true. Coach now for the Solar Scarabs, iRaffer. Haven't seen him since his time
that
over
feels
in the
like a
SPL.
cheat code a little bit, right? Like, are you allowed to just bring in like a multi-world champion like that?
I guess so. They clearly did right now. And maybe that could give them a little bit of extra sense in the picks and bans. So you do have long-term veterans like Zyrhoes and Deathwalker on there, but having that third eye and that third mind to kind of go alongside those. And I kind of want to maybe deviate back over to, or kind of push back over towards the Camelot Kings in that last pick. Looking at what they already had, it was Chernobog, Ratatoskr, Vulcan, and Sylvanus. What's kind of missing from that composition right now that you'd maybe like to see kind of be fulfilled out by that last pick for variety?
One more frontliner. I think someone who can consistently disrupt that backline is really where I'm looking. So Surtur would fill that playstyle. I think Hercules also fills that playstyle, something we've seen from Variety of Fair Deal in the past. You just need one other person making it easier for that Sylvanus to play his own game. Sylvanus is capable of playing a front-to-back style where he can either hang out in his own backline and play peel, play sustain, go for long-range, non-committal initiation with the pull, or we'll see Sylvanus go for the all-in Geb style of play. Just blink, ult, root him when he lands, pull him again. You're not allowed to move. You can't speak. You can't play. There's that play style available to him. But I would like to see one additional frontliner to allow him to choose between the two. If there is not another guaranteed frontliner, if it's something like a mage solo carry type pick, then all of a sudden Sylvanus essentially has to be the all-in initiator every single time. And if you fall behind, that style of play is really hard to execute on.
I will say, when you can get Sylvanus to the point of the game where he's tanky enough to be able to sit in the middle of 3-4 people, gets massive ultimates, able to get those heals off, you throw in something like, you know, the cooldown meditation along with it, you're getting those cooldowns up just every couple of seconds by nature of his passive, and you can just keep firing off CC after CC, heal after heal to your team. Can be very disruptive, can keep that team alive, so curious to see which of those two styles of play Quig adapts to go towards. Will it be that Blink old school style player? Will it be more of that sit back and protect your
Definitely
carries?
not Blink first slot.
I don't think
Definitely
Blink
not.
first slot. Maybe
Gotta be
second
Heavenly.
slot.
Gotta be Heavenly.
It would have to be something a little bit, I don't know, Heavenly? Well,
Up
I guess
against
you
the
are going to get
Nemesis?
Nemesis.
Yeah.
Yeah, good call. Especially the Sylvanus. That is just a miserable matchup for the Sylvanus to have to really deal with it. It's something that can just run him down really, really quickly over to there. So we do jump back into the picks and bans now. As you still see, it was the Hachiman, Ganesha, and Baba Yaga on the side of the Scarabs.
Bit of a
Camelot
rollback
Kings
here.
do have the Chernobog, Rat, Vulcan, and Sylvanus, but one bit of a pick change here won't be the Nemesis. Instead, it will be the Mercury for the Solar Scarabs. Still hovering that Bellona and locked in. So how much does that now maybe change the dynamic of what Quig wants to do on the Sylvanus up against the Mercury?
I mean, it's not even that Quig's changing his dynamic of what he wants to do into Mercury. It's so much so that the Solar Scarabs do not now have a guaranteed option to kill that Sylvanus. Whereas previously, if Nem rotated through at level 5 with an item, Sylvanus is essentially guaranteed dead. Mercury has to work a little bit harder. Doesn't have the same level of slows to lock him down. Still does have a little bit of global presence, so can match up with Chernobog in that regard. And has a little bit more one-shot potential. What Mercury does better than Nemesis, if Nemesis is there to kill Sylv, Mercury's there to kill Vulcan. If you can find the Sonic Boom from downtown with a crit build, one solid punch, and remove Vulcan from a team fight, things are going to look very good. But this Odin pickup does make it much harder to go for that exact style of play, especially in the team fight phase. If Odin's in the engagement in a jungle fight or wherever they happen to be and throws up the cage, there's going to be inconsequential, just accidental blocks of Sonic Boom. It's almost guaranteed to happen. So that Mercury's going to have a much more difficult time finding those priority targets.
And also when you just look at the composition of the Solar Scarabs, Bobby, Yaga, and Ganesha are the only ones who can somewhat consistently be able to get out of that cage unless the dash from Ganesha gets blocked. And really, there aren't a whole lot of great answers to being able to escape that cage. I mean, Bellona can use ultimate to jump out, but that's trading Bellona ultimate just to escape an Odin ultimate. In some situations might be good just to get away from a death at that point. But this Odin, I think, answers now that question that I was asking you before, which is what would you like to see out of Camelot Kings? You said that second front line to be able to really get in there and disrupt them. I think Odin might be able to do something really strong with that, but not only just against the Mercury. I mean, how does Odin kind of just deal with the remainder of this composition for the Solar Scarabs?
Bellona's not exactly concerned with what Odin's doing, how those two interact. It's essentially, hey, I'm going to go dive, you dive. Let's see which one of us can do it better. Ganesh, you don't really worry about it either. You can throw up the cage inside of the cage, and all of a sudden, you know, Hell in a Cage match, who's just doing more damage. I think really this Odin is there to make it difficult for Mercury to exist, which we've already evaluated, as well as the Hachiman. Hachiman, if he's caged out there, I mean, he's just stuck. You can hop on a mounted cavalry. You could probably run around in circles, avoid some of that damage, but you're not getting out of the cage. So Phantom Shell's certainly on the mind here for the Solar Scarabs.
It's going to be a tough battle for the Solar Scarabs. You got to fight against an SPL team to try and get to that top side of the bracket, put yourself one set away from qualifying to the SWC. It's going to be a tough one for really both of these teams. And I think everybody should be keeping eyes on the Solar Scarabs through here. It's another EU SCC team that's trying to make that run towards Worlds. We'll see if the SCC can pull out here for game number 1. It's the Scarabs versus the Kings. We'll throw it over to Frog and Trelly.
Thank you so much, J-Mac and Mifflin on the desk. You've got the Kings, you've got the Solar Scarabs going up against this matchup, right? Both teams, as J-Mac mentioned, trying to put themselves on match point, on set point to go to Worlds. Firstly, though, they got to get through this matchup. And we've seen the compositions broken down very well on the desk. My focus maybe goes immediately towards pace of the game. Because, yeah, we've got an EU team. We've got the EU SEC literally coming from that region. But we've also got the Kings, which are kind of an EU team.
Oh, they're
well.
definitely an EU team.
So I mean, I expect this pacing to be maybe a little bit slower than we expect.
Yeah, they are definitely an EU team first and foremost. Second of all, I want to touch on a bit of the interview, because Deathwalker said, I assumed that 90% of his interview was satire, right? I assumed he was playing the Deathwalker character that we see so often, and he said something along the lines of, I'm a little behind the meta, I don't know, I'll probably play Bellona. And he is playing Bellona, and he is going like the death toll start that you would expect. So, if that's true, do you think he really doesn't know who Quig is?
I was about to say the same thing. I think he might legitimately not know who Quig is. He can see him, though. They've got player booths, right? Like, he could stand up and look at Quig.
Let me be clear. Quig is that dude. He's him? I don't want to say that Deathwalker needs to study up, but these polls are going to be coming, Deathwalker. You better watch out, man. If Quig gets a nice poll, I'm going to make sure to say, all right, you know who he is now. It is official at this point. But, hey, he's on the Sylvanus, so maybe he has to play a little bit more passive for the time being.
Maybe not as passive as we initially thought, though, because of those draft changes that came through. Mentioned on the desk, of course, this Mercury coming through as opposed to this Nemesis that was initially locked in. And sure enough, you get a lot of that pressure over in the duel lane. Looks like they're pushing up against the enemy tower. I mean, talk to me about a little bit in this matchup. We have not been seeing a lot of this Sylvanus, but brings a lot of pressure over towards that duel lane.
Well, that's the benefit, right? You get to triple buff, which is very nice. You get infinite wave clear as long as you've got Jarcorrr, who's going to be, you know, looking towards late game anyway, so you're kind of playing a bit more passive. But because you have that pressure, yeah, you're also putting yourself at a bit of a disadvantage because of that Mercury. If you're that far up, if you're looking at bastions, if you're at the tower line, that Sonic Boom's going to go the whole way down that lane. So you have to watch your positioning. I assume Quig and Jarcorrr know this. They say, hey, there's no way that we've got CaptainTwig heading over at the moment. He's over on the right side of the map towards Variety, so there's going to be a Mercury at that shield buff. Apreel has the confidence at the moment to step over here, so we should probably back up. So good peace of mind there for the Camelot Kings, just to know their map pressure and know where their jungler's at.
Both junglers splitting those neutral farms on either of those side lanes. And I think if there is early pressure, if we do expect to see any of these kills in the first 5 or 10 minutes, it's almost assuredly to be through these global pressure gods. And of course, you know, think of Chernobog, picked now and in the hands of Jarcorrr. We've seen him with a lot of success in that pick, but also thinking about these junglers. Both, I mean, Rat obviously the semi-global, but like you said, Merc can go all the way down that lane, and they can, you know, they have their pick of lanes here if they want to try and start putting out that pressure once they hit level 5.
I would like to see it, and Jarcorrr is one of those players who is not afraid of clicking that ultimate at level 5, right? And usually, you're going to miss a wave, you're going to get a little bit behind in XP, but you fly over towards solo lane, you fly over towards mid lane. If a fight breaks out, Jarcorrr could send it. And I think if we are seeing a first blood, it's going to be around CaptainTwig, it's going to be around Variety. Not necessarily, it's sort of a kill or be killed situation where they find themselves scrapping towards these blue buffs a lot. This has been a conversation for the Camelot Kings. The jungle solo, if they are on point, the team looks unstoppable. If they're not, it looks a bit shaky, and more often than not, Variety and Twig have come into question, right? Their play style, their aggression, and this is the kind of matchup where on the Odin you have a lot of safety, on the Rat you have a lot of early pressure. They could look to scrap over in that solo lane.
I mean, new year, new kings, new gameplay, right? Total chance to reinvent how they want to play, and maybe back to the solo lane is where they wanted to head. And with these warriors, we've talked already today a little bit about this patch, right? No mages seen in the solo lane thus far. Maybe
love that.
We'll continue to not see them. We'll
Hope
have to
so.
see how that meta rounds out. But these two warriors, ones that we have not seen yet this weekend, certainly not in the 2 matches previously, and ones that I'm maybe a little bit surprised by. We mentioned the Bellona. Maybe that's, I don't know what that is. Like,
no.
that's just, maybe that's just Deathwalker. The Odin as a last pick, though, brings an interesting element to the fights a little bit later.
I am an Odin believer for sure, and with the Warriors Axe changes, you're getting that proc pretty consistently. Any warrior the reason that Nike is being banned so consistently, as we may see a bit of a scrap here in mid lane, is because of the Warriors Act changes, man. You are able to proc it consistently in lane. If you have a ranged ability, you're almost guaranteed to just win out. Difference maker here, though, is that Deathwalker goes for an auto attacker with Death Toll, so you still do have a level of sustain, right? You don't have to worry about getting constantly poked down with that Warriors Axe proc every couple seconds that it's available, but still, Variety has that level of poke. He has that own level of self-sustain, so he can go for a chalice and to sort of match that pressure that Deathwalker has. I don't mind it. I just don't think there's going to be too much killing until these junglers get involved. And coincidentally, I was going to say both junglers were over in right lane, but Twig doesn't like the idea for a fight, and Apreel didn't even look towards it, just headed over towards left lane. Probably wants to get that Rage online first.
Everybody looking for those first item spikes here. Thieves finished out for these supports, it looks like. Book of Thoth online for both of these mid laners. We haven't really gotten to the mid lane matchup. This Vulcan was something that surprised us in the qualifying tournament before the winter break, right? We saw this Vulcan from BigManTingz, I think from a few other players as well. Has some objective pressure, has a lot of pressure in that mid lane. And up against the Baba Yaga, another pick that we've seen a lot before this year, but maybe, you know, not the first thing that I was expecting for this tournament.
Not my favorite pickup into Vulcan, but Zyrhoes does have a level of safety, right? It's very difficult because you can't proc your Aegis when you're in your ultimate. You're not, when the Home Sweet Home is firing, you have to cancel it to Aegis, and it's a pretty easy target to land on. There's not much movement going on in that ultimate. But besides that, melee gods don't really appreciate the Baba Yaga. You can get out of the Odin cage. You should be able to stay pretty far away from Quig, and you have knock-up immunity baked into the kit, so that ultimate's not going to be a problem. So some good, some bad here. Just a comfort pick as far as I'm concerned for Zyrhoes. I do want to see something that I found quite interesting. CaptainTwig has been streaming a lot, and he does go for the Acorn that buffs your Acorn Blast, right? Your 3. But I've been seeing him max the second ability. I'm really curious if he does that this time around. Puts the points into the 2. but upgrades the actual Acorn Blast. Let's see if he's doing it. Yeah, he's doing it again. This is something that I have found very interesting about Twig in particular. The 2 does do a ton of damage, but he just leaves 1 point in the Acorn Blast.
I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I play a lot of Rat.
Okay.
I invented that.
Toot.
Yeah, I used to do that, and then my friend got mad at me. He was like, dude, you're missing all of this damage on your Acorn Blast. And sure enough, you're maybe missing a lot of damage, all that burst damage that can come through. But with the pacing of the game so far, right, if you're focused a little bit more on clear, maybe you that's where you're seeing the benefits, and you're just leveling the ability that's up a little bit more often, hits everything. And so far, we haven't seen either of these junglers press the 4 button.
And you haven't. Like, when did you tell Twig that so he could copy you?
Oh, no, it was seasons ago.
It's been a minute.
Nowadays, I level the 3 because my friend got mad at me, right?
Well, now you should feel...
Now I should go back to it.
Exactly.
Because now a pro player has done it.
Well, my point is you said you invented it, so I'm just wondering when you gave the information to Twig so he could copy you. We'll figure it out later. But still, 0-0, very even game so far. This is exactly what you called out before the game even started. Slow pacings. Apreel has charged up Sonic Boom multiple times, has not sent it out because there just hasn't been an opportunity. These relics have been up all game.
Well, he just likes hearing the clap.
I understand.
You know, and granted, what can I see what skin it is? I like that skin.
Yeah, run.exe.
Right, you get the clap. It's a nice sound, so you get to hear. You're like cheering for yourself as your team goes on. I mean, looking at the composition, so when do you want to see either of these teams pull the trigger?
Right now.
Might not even. Yeah, it might be right now as Twig coming around the back. Stun comes through. Apreel forced to back off, at least for the time being. Thought there might be. I mean, Twig was around all 3 of them, but he gets the stun only on 1, pull off the mark, and it'll just go down without a fight.
Gotta love fighting for that shield buff, but nothing's gonna open itself up. And that's what you asked when I want to see a fight. Jokingly said right now, but if it's Apreel, you don't want to send out Sonic Boom unless you know a relic's down. You know, there is an opportunity in duo lane to fight, but Jarcorrr has just so many opportunities to go into the wall, go up into the air, fly away to Deathwalker, who's never going to be able to kill him at this level. There's just so many options in play. But I think Twig could definitely send out a few ultimates just to see what happens. Rat has so much mobility here, and you know, with the stun, with the beads available, it's not as if you need, you know, through the Cosmos to get out of trouble, whereas Apreel might want to rely on it just a little bit. Gold Fury is a topic of conversation. You've got BigManTingz, who's essentially a hunter, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to DPS. That turret will help you chunk an objective so quickly, and then you have the burst as well. So it's not as if it couldn't be pulled very quickly here from the Camelot Kings, but Scarabs are always nearby. Dharmic Pillars can create some problems, so I can see why both teams are playing this a bit slower.
My eyes go to the builds, see where we might find some of the power spikes here. Obviously going to need stacks on that Rage if you're the Mercury from Apreel, but my eyes go towards the build from Deathwalker, and we talk. You know,
he loves this.
He goes to the Bellona time and time again. Maybe this build stuck in the past a little bit, but I mean, what are your thoughts? The phalanx into what looks to be an aggressive item there in that second slot.
I believe he upgrades Xe immediately. Hold that thought.
Sonic Boom in onto Quig and onto the Dharmic Pillars there. Quig gets taken out. First blood of the Scarabs.
Finally, we see some action. Apreel finishes that Rage immediately. Gets the Rage stack online. This Mercury is going to start hitting very hard, very fast with that Rage stacked up. And that's the issue, man. Wrath of Terra. You want to charge it up to avoid some of that CC, but with silencing, say that 5 times fast, and the Sonic Boom and special delivery from the Mercury, it was just CC chain. There was no opportunity to get the ultimate off. Starting off First Blood strong, the Solar Scarab strike first. But as we were saying, Deathwalker either upgrades the Xe immediately or goes into Kins. Either way, just wants to do a bit more damage on this Bellona as opposed to just a CC bot or someone who is auto-attacking with like Frostbound Hammer. It's usually just, hey, I'm going to try and outbox the ADCs before they get online. Could work out, especially if you hit level 12, get that upgraded relic, and then teleport over.
I'll be interested to see whether or not these ADCs choose to go just pure shred or maybe into that crit route as they start to think about how those 1v1s are going to go. Bellona in the late game certainly can be threatening as we get to those fights. And then, I mean, with the pacing of this game, it feels like we're going there. It feels like we're heading to 30, 40 minutes potentially between these teams. And already the gold lead, I mean, just with that 1 kill, I have to imagine maybe it's a little bit more than that. Positive farms, some maybe buffs, neutral camps favored for the Scarabs, but starting to amass a little bit of a lead.
Yep, it's taken a bit, but it is starting to build up here for the Solar Scarabs. And we have to talk about the teleports because they're both upgraded, right? I want to see them used a little bit more aggressively. Variety has the ability to go to a ward whenever he wants. Deathwalker still needs a little bit of extra gold put into that relic. But all it would take is, you know, a nice ult from Apreel, a good silence from Silence that just wants to start a fight, and or a nice stun-in from Quig. He's got the pulls. CaptainTwig's always around. These solo laners can get involved, and when they do, we will probably see some action over towards that Gold Fury, but at the moment, it's just farming Frog. That's what all these squads are going for.
Yeah, up until now, I mean, it's really been nobody over in the solo lane except for these solo laners. And Deathwalker may have a little bit of an advantage in the pressure there, but no solo kill potential. These junglers have been hovering around this left-hand side. And right around 12 minutes here, we'll get the first non-negotiable objective of the game, right? This beacon's going to spawn. Somebody is going to stand on it. And right now, just asking the question of how many people do you want to dedicate to it? Looks like it was only CaptainTwig who may be under a little bit of pressure. Into the ultimate, Jarcorrr comes to join the fray. Sonic Boom, though, gets apreel out of dodge, and iSilenced under some pressure, able to back away as well. Now with Variety on the rotation, they've got the pressure here on the beacon.
All right, he's got Blink, he's got ult available. Decides not to go for it, just grab the beacon. Make sure that one goes over to the Camelot Kings. Love the rotation and love the ultimate there from Jarcorrr. Doesn't really net much. You just force out the Sonic Boom from Apreel, but the kill potential and the fear opens up that beacon, so well played there by the Camelot Kings. As Echrome does steal away the shield buff. We would have to find a nice pull, but beats and mounted archery available means that Echrome's not going to face too much from a gank opportunity over here. It seems like both of these solo laners recognize the pace of the game. They are both going into that prophetic cloak. They're saying, hey, we need to stack this up. Might as well start now. This game's not ending anytime soon. And that's the feeling I got as well.
Yeah, this one feels like we're in it for the long haul. And admittedly, I thought it was going to be even faster just because of that beacon, right? They rotate Variety over. You have a man advantage. Thought they might try to pull the Gold Fury. Instead, it'll be now beats forced onto Zyrhoes. We'll at least pull that relic away from the mid laner. And that might be legitimately, outside of Blink, the first defensive relic used this game.
Yep, that's big. I think that with the silence, it didn't even seem like Zyrhoes needed a beat, so it was fearful. Look at those crits coming through. Deathbringer, second item for Apreel. Plenty of DPS, but here comes Variety.
You're looking for the shred, and you're trying to find it, but they've let Pyro go. They somehow are able to come away with the objective. Now ultimates burn. Apreel trying to make his way out of the fight. Quig and Variety frontlining for the Kings. They're able to push them back away from the objective, but somehow last bit of damage goes through. The Solar Scarabs able to take the Pyromancer, but in trying to get the bomb, Silence steps too far out of position, and he'll lose his life for pain.
I mean, the reason that was such a great pull was because BigManTingz was nowhere to be found, right? If he has that ultimate, you got the Earthshaker, you no longer want to go in towards that Pyro, but because he was gone, they go for it, and then you walk back up. That's the mistake. Tingz is there, Variety is there, maybe baiting his HP bar a bit, but plenty of lockdown, plenty of CC, and the kill goes over to CaptainTwig. So not the worst trade in the world. You definitely prefer to have that Runic Bomb because now the Solar Scarabs have plenty of opportunity to get involved. But still, some scrapping over towards the Gold Fury, and it seems like the Scarabs were the first ones to get aggressive here.
Both ADCs a little bit towards the mid lane here, but I think they'll just trade some poke, head towards that left side of the map. And I'm interested that it wasn't the Kings who tried to start that fight. If anything, I would think you want to be the one starting the fight on the right side because your Chernobog can join the fight and that the Hachiman doesn't have that same global pressure.
It would take him a while to try and match the pressure of Jarcorrr.
Well, he's got a horse.
He's got a horse.
That would help.
It's not going to get you the whole way, though. Even with the Jitsu, it takes too long. So it could be a possibility, but you're right. Just going back to the drawing board here. I do like that the Solar Scarabs were trying to find a little, fight towards the green buff, a little towards the actual vision on the side of the Gold Fury, which went the way of the Camelot Kings, but at least attempting to get that vision down because it's very important. Not having to waste a ward or overriding wards in this case, just letting you know, hey, the Gold Fury, which has not even been looked at yet, is clean for the moment. Still, the idea that the Solar Scarabs are not afraid to fight is clean. They just do not care. They're stepping forward, silence the zones out, and get the shield buff, right? They're not playing with fear at the slightest.
The longer this game goes without an objective, the more the first objective fight means, right? Because at that point, it's not just a 5-minute Gold Fury. It becomes an entire fight you could win. And on the back of a Dharmic Pillars, it's Quig who's under the pressure. Echrome onto the horse, finds the last hit onto the Sylvanus. And that may spell the man advantage they were looking for. Oracles now under pressure here as apreel able to blink in from Twig, and immediately the damage is turned around. Sonic Boom to clean things up. It's now 2 down for the Kings.
I mean, he just blinked in there. I guess BigManTingz was on board and said, hey, I got the damage if you follow up, but it just didn't seem like a play that needed to happen. CaptainTwig falls down off of a risky call. Good damage by Zyrhoes, just showing exactly how much Baba Yaga can do early on, especially when you don't slot a defense item in the mix. That's just 3 damage items on line 4 Zyrhoes. But still, not even an attempt for the Gold Fury. They're not going to bite off more than they can chew. They know the Vulcan's nearby. And actually, the Camelot Kings are going to pull this one, and they've got plenty of damage.
They're the ones grouped up on this. The vision is there for the Scarabs. They know it's happening, but the shred is so strong for the Camelot Kings. Earthshaker comes out, and like you said, that turret's like they've got 2 ADCs and a mage hitting that thing, and it falls down instantly. First neutral objective over to the Kings.
There's the call. Camelot Kings are stepping up a bit. Quig goes in for the pull, misses, and now Quig's in trouble.
Off the mark with the pull, but Variety is here to join the fray. 2-man ultimate, and somehow Quig is alive. Somehow Variety takes down apreel, and it's a 1-for-1 to start things off. But the Soul Laners have joined the fray, and Deathwalker now looking for Jarcorrr. Twig finds silence on the other side of the fight, and it's a scrap on the left-hand side. Soul Laners here, though. I don't think this can continue.
1 for 2. You're definitely happy with that if you're the Camelot Kings. Beautiful ult by CaptainTwig to get to the backline and get out safely. Deathwalker makes that rotation in. But this is what I was talking about. Jarcorrr just has so much safety to his own name. Will Zyrhoes go for the ultimate, though? Does need a little bit more damage to try and find it, and can't connect. So BigManTingz gets to keep his relics today. Either way, though, I mean, I thought Quig stepped too far. Everyone probably thought Quig stepped up too far, and he ended up going down. But at the cost of 2, I think you'll take that trade every day of the week.
Yeah, Variety gets 1. I mean, I will say for all the scrapping is Zyrhoes, the only one seemingly wants to be here for the beacon as the Pyromancer gets looked at. I was going to say, though, 7 kills total in this game, 4 of them for the Scarabs, and sure enough, 4 rage stacks for apreel. He has been involved in every single kill thus far. And if you're looking for power on your Mercury, Myth talked about on the desk the ability to delete a carry, delete this Vulcan once you get later into the game. Eyes are on apreel for where these ults are positioned as we get later into these fights.
And there is some self-heal available as the Pyromancer gets started up. Already apreel's charging the ultimate, but doesn't want to send it in. It looks like the burst comes through, and the Camelot Kings grab that one for free. Solar Scarabs don't even want to step up towards that Pyromancer. You don't want to send a Sonic Boom through, then accidentally get him by the tail end of the Earthshaker. BigManTingz just has so much damage online. I think apreel makes the right call.
It's tough to step in there. I mean, we talked about the secure that they have with the Vulcan Earthshaker coming through, and that's now a Runic Bomb in the pocket of both of these supports. As we start to think about the biggest objective on the map, Charlie, 20 minutes in, 1 Gold Fury, 2 Pyromancers, only 7 kills thus far in the game. Would the Kings secure their objective shred? Do you expect them to be the ones trying to push the reins in this game and maybe starting to think about that biggest objective?
It does seem like the call, but remember, they have Jarcorrr, who could easily split push away and try and force someone over. That is also an opportunity. That's what Chernobog brings to the table. You have overwhelming safety. Even if apreel and Echrome try and gank you, you can hide in the wall, jump back out, beads, go to the sky, fly over. There's just so many opportunities here for Jarcorrr. And he pilots this Chernobog effortlessly. It's not going to take too much to just, be an annoyance here to the Solar Scarabs. So, while yes, the Camelot Kings have been the ones getting a bit more aggressive recently, I think they'll let Jarcorrr farm up a bit, maybe get that upgraded starter item, and then look towards a Fire Giant, or at the very least try and send someone over to stop the split push.
A 4-man grouping here from the Scarabs, almost catching Twig out around the Fire Giant. Nobody is any of the wiser, right, of what the next objective is going to be, or at least nobody wants to let anything go down for free. We saw how fast the Kings were able to shred that first Gold Fury. And with this next Primal Fury spawning on the map, if the Kings are able to take that, that's only going to improve their objective shred as things go longer. When we talk about the Kings' ability to step up their aggression, if you're looking at the Scarabs, where does their aggression come from? Do you expect them to continue waiting as well, or maybe because of the Chernobog, are they forced to start these fights?
I would like the Solar Scarabs to start a fight over at Fire Giant, just because Silence is in a great position relic-wise. He's got the Phantom Shell, he's got the Curse Donk, not quite fully upgraded yet, but it really does ruin a lot of what Quig wants to do. You know, if he's going to find a knock-up for the team, that's all well and good, but once that Onk comes through, the healing's not going to matter, your whole team's going to be worse off for it, and you've got plenty of damage to just all in an engagement, right? The Vulcan is going to have to try and run away from the Mercury. The Deathwalker's got plenty of auto-attack damage online as well. So if you're trying to not deal with the global presence, yeah, I would just say send everyone over towards Fire Giant, let Jarcorrr push, maybe he gets a tier 1 tower, but he's going to have to fly in, and once that ultimate is down, you have to commit to an all-in fight into likely a Curse Donk.
Only one tower falling thus far. That's the left side tier 1. So every other structure remaining on the map. Plenty of split push potential if you want to try and force Jarcorrr down a lane. But now with Gold Fury back up again, Fire Giant back up around 22 minutes. And of course this third beacon close to spawning. We'll have the Titans pushing down a lane. You see some of the pings coming through, maybe trying to catch Deathwalker. But speaking of Deathwalker, let's circle back to this build. Has the Executioner, has the Shogun's Gusari, now picks that up. And I'm looking at the other side, looking at the Hunter. There's some crit over there for Jarcorrr as well. I mean, who is winning that boxing match?
I mean, at the moment, Jarcorrr is going to try to avoid Deathwalker, not because he can't outbox him, just because he doesn't want his auto attacks to get eaten alive. But Fury started up. Jarcorr's the only one nearby. Low stakes steal, but he can go for it, and he gets it!
Shred is great, but Secure is better for the Camelot Kings. Just throws out the first ability, effortless for Jarcorrr on the Chernobog, and they pick up the Primal Fury, and once again, that's going to just improve their shred.
The man's ice cold. Didn't have a reaction, just said, I bet he said, I got it. And then that was the end of the conversation, because that's the kind of guy Yark is. And now Pyromancer started up. The Kings are nearby, but look at this. BigManTingz is being zoned out. He can't get anywhere near this objective.
They look for another steal, but it's the Scarabs looking for the fight as 2 trapped in the cage. Phantom Shell gets popped. Into the air goes Twig. The low health bar on Variety. And it'll just be the Pyromancer. So now 2 Runic Bombs in the pocket of the Scarabs. And they're looking to pick up the Fire Giant. Crits rain true, and it's down on the shred. Jarcorrr in, CaptainTwig on the engage, but he gets eaten alive and taken down to the gray screen. Jarcorrr finds another one, but all the while Fire Giant getting low. Quig will fall down. Fire Giant, everybody hops off the objective, and it's just a 2-for-1 in favor of the Scarabs.
Echrome's too weak, though. The Solar Scarabs have to back up, and it looks like the Camelot Kings were going to step up. I was going to say, are you guys going to pull this 3v4? Would have been an insane play to make. But the Solar Scarabs, they've got teleport. Deathwalker's here. Are they going to stick around and try and go for a pull, or are they just zoning? Yeah, with Apreel heading over left, I think that's going to be it. I love that play, though, from the Solar Scarabs. We talked about it, with Jarcorrr having this global presence. Just going for the objective outright is going to be better than trying to chase him down, and already the pull starts back up. Yark's here, Variety's in the backline, but he didn't get back to base, he's so weak.
Apreel on this way to the fight, but you're right, Variety still half HP and now loses the cage early on in this fight. BigManTingz, though, in range, and as the Earthshaker looking for the steal, won't find it as the Scarabs take down the Fire Giant. And they won't even need to look for the chase. That's a clean objective pickup. 5 with fire for the Scarabs.
Yep, they get it, they get out. BigManTingz has been zoned pretty consistently. Was certainly in range to go for a steal, but that ultimate, that's the thing about Vulcan ult. Takes a while to come out, it takes a while to shoot, and once you can't get it there, you just don't have any steal opportunity. Between the Solar Scarabs have a 4, almost 5,000 gold lead. They've got a late game Mercury, which is always going to be scary, and they've got a Fire Giant on 5. Scary stuff. They're going to take their time, still have plenty of tier 2s to go for, and tier 1s for that matter. So there's a lot of real estate on the map for them to try and grab to put some more gold in their pockets.
You know, with this, I'm not sure that Deathwalker has learned who Quig is yet.
I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to be that guy. But
but I mean, still opportunities to.
Yep.
They still have a lot of time to push and a lot to push through. It's still 2 tier 1 towers in the map, all of these tier 2s. 26 minutes in, still no, I mean, not to EFG territory just yet. And with how slow this game has been on just the standard objectives, you have to imagine that the sieges are a whole new territory for how the Kings want to defend, if they even want to defend these tier 2s.
I mean, you're going to have to deal with the Titan pretty soon as well, coming down mid lane, so that's going to help out the Solar Scarab siege. They have split push potential with Apreel, but without a Phantom Shell, it's not as if you want to run around and get caught out by Variety, so I can understand why you just want to group up here. Deathwalker, on the other hand, he's tanky, he's got teleport, he is able to grab the tier 1 over and right. I really do just want to see a full-on 5v5 in mid lane, though. I think that's the best use of the Solar Scarab's time. Variety knows Phantom Shell's up, so isn't even going to attempt to go in for an ultimate here. I think you just give up the tier 2 and do your best to defend Phoenix if you're the Camelot Kings.
You're going to have the Titan pushing down the mid lane. You've got Jarcorrr over on the left side as well, but the go button is there, and the ultimates get dropped. Apreel alone in the back line, but BMT is left alone in his front line and taken out by Deathwalker. Tier 2 tower falls, and Jarcorrr is low and running for his life under the Phoenix. All 5 members pushing down for the Scarabs. They'll go right through the Phoenix, and a double for Deathwalker, a kill for Apreel. 3 down for the Camelot Kings, and all of a sudden, the Titan is exposed. 5 members strong. The Order Titan battering away
HP
at the Chaos Titan. Deathwalker grabs another one, a D inside, and game number 1 to the Scarab.
What a dominant performance here for the Solar Scarabs. They played for late game, they failed, their comp was better, and I think they were right. Apreel had no problem. Silence just walks up, drops the Dark Pillars, and says, let's go. Who cares about the tier 2? Let's run through the Phoenix. Tingz got killed twice during that fight through relics. It's just unfortunate that the Scarabs were able to get such a massive lead, and they didn't have a care in the world.
That is, I'm blown away. I'm at a loss for words, because we expected it to be slow. We expected it to be methodical from both these squads. We even saw the Camelot Kings got both of the Gold Furies.
Yep.
They were favored in some of these objectives. And then it's like they just flip a switch. They have this shred, they have this crit. This Mercury, I mean, we were questioning whether they even knew the meta. They made up their own meta.
All right, we weren't questioning it. Deathwalker brought it up to us. He's like, we're lost, bro. I told you it was satire. He was joking. He was messing with us because they knew that Jarcorrr was going to go split push. They knew Jarcorrr was not going to be in that fight. Then, when he showed up, he was at like 20% HP. The second he landed from that Chernobog ultimate, he had to try and run away, and he couldn't get out.
That's something the Camelot Kings certainly are going to have to bounce back from. That'll do it for game number 1. We'll throw it to a quick break and be back for game number 2.
I've been giving you the worst of me. Now you wanna stay the night. Pretty how you work hard for me. Why forgetting how to talk? Nah, I don't like no humble beats. Just go and suss it up. Now it's time to marinate. And right after we're done, I like it when you're looking like that. Don't like it when you chat. I like it when you're looking like that. Or shy, just fine, don't mind my reaction. I like it when you look like that. Don't wanna watch a bugger with a white mouth. Just like it when you're looking like it. No sweets, no rush, can't my attraction. Don't think twice, I'm here for a moment. No, I like him better. I got a church place somewhere and I'll make it last forever. I've been giving you the worst of me. Now you wanna stay the night. Pretty how you work hard for me. Why forgetting how to talk? Now I don't like no got PhD. I'm all that you need. Just give me those. I've been giving you the worst of me. Now you wanna stay the night. Pretty how you work hard for me. While forgetting how to talk. No, I don't like no hobbies. Just go and spice it up. Now it's time to marinate. Right after we're done.
That's right, our partners over at Advanced GG have collaborated with us once more to bring you a brand new shaker and flavor, the Cthulhu's Dream, now available on their website. And if you want to buy anything from Advanced GG, you can use code SMITE and get 10% off of your entire order for those products. So make sure you go over to advanced.gg, pick up anything, whether it be Smite themed or non-Smite themed, use code SMITE for 10% off. And then if you want to, you can just go ahead and buy the new Cthulhu stuff. Cthulhu's Dream, the raspberry acai flavor, available again in shaker and as a flavor for you. So go ahead and pick those ones up as well. Already discounted if you do buy the bundle, but if you don't, again, code SMITE, 10% off to get that. Thank you so much to Advanced GG for joining us here in Season 10 of the Smite Pro League and Year 10 of Smite for yet another collaboration. Here in game number 1, Myth, you can kind of almost maybe throw the first 20 or so minutes of the game out because this was back and forth, few kills traded between the two teams, objectives back and forth between them, but it really comes down to this fire giant team fight, and it kind of alluded to a lot of what we were talking about in the pregame is these teams are willing to wait a little bit longer, kind of gear towards this late game team fight. but it's the Solar Scarabs who had that better team fight, able to push themselves in and get this first game win.
I don't even know if it's particularly the team fight that wins the day for the Solar Scarabs. It looked to me like the Camelot Kings were almost entirely caught off guard by how quickly the Solar Scarabs were capable of knocking down an objective. The crits from Apreel, all that damage from iSilenced, Echrome, that we had talked about it, the dual lane's ability to boost objective burn, just ridiculous. And the Solar Scarabs essentially do Fire Giant in the face of the Camelot Kings. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, BigManTingz got best confirmation on map, not even close. It's just going to walk up and steal, but he was not quite in range. And by the time he had got there, things were a little bit too late. And that Fire Giant just looked so simple immediately afterward. Loved everything from the Solar Scarabs. Felt like they kinged the Kings, right? It just slow early game, farm it up, make things work, and that's exactly what happens.
The interactions between Deathwalker and Variety's team fights, we see specifically in a Tier 2 tower where Variety ults defensively, and what do the Solar Scarabs do? The Deathwalker jumps into the middle of the cage, Phantom Shell gets popped, and they say, all right, guys, we're just going to keep running at the Camelot Kings, and the Solar Scarabs do just that. They push up mid. They're able to take game number 1 in under 30 minutes this time, and now put themselves one up over the Camelot Kings here in the best of 3 series. Remember, winner of this one still continues on. They'll be in the upper bracket and will then be on a qualifier match of best of 5. The qualifier Worlds loser of this one drops down into the lower bracket and will face potential elimination, kind of moving into the second part of, or the second half of our weekend. So, with a good, strong start now for the Solar Scarabs, the question now comes to the Camelot Kings: is the adaptation come into the picks and bans, or do you think this is an adaptation on field for the Camelot Kings?
So many of the Kings picks were good. Chernobog, Vulcan, Rat, I think those 3, I'm not going to complain about them ever. The Odin, how it played into the composition that he was up against, I think plays well. That's where it stops, though, as far as the good is, in my opinion. That Sylvanus just did not get any value. The initiations that he hit were all right, but by that time, the team fight was already going so solidly in favor of the Scarabs. The healing numbers he was putting out, I believe it was 3,000 to close that game. Not high enough. 3,000 damage as well. Not high enough. 6,000 affected stats. And he wasn't even matching the damage output of the enemy support. So I think that Sylvanus needs to be anything else. That's the only adjustment I'm calling for from the Kings. Build a composition however you want, so long as it does not involve the tree.
We'll have to see if the Camelot Kings do just that. Picks and bans game number 2. Scarabs again will be on this first pick side of Camelot Kings, electing to go back to the second pick for themselves. Kukulkan and Athena were the first bans in game number 1, along with this Aphrodite from the Solar Scarabs, and it seems that we might just be having a bit of a run back as far as the first wave of bans go. The same 6 from game 1 repeated now here in game 2. They know exactly what they want to ban. They said, these are problems, don't want to deal with it. And the Solar Scarabs once again go back to this first pick Hachiman. They didn't get number 1. I kind of question what the decision around it was, but considering they really didn't have that much priority or necessity to go for an immediate jungle ban, worked out well for the Solar Scarabs. But here's the adaptation now from the Camelot Kings, taking away the Ganesha from the Solar Scarabs and then drafting Anhur over in the duo lane.
I like this adaptation from the Kings. Picking up Anhur and putting an aggressive laner in the duo will give the Camelot Kings a lane that they can consistently play through, and you can absolutely trust that Yark's going to be able to at least hold his own up against a Hachiman. Hachi is one of the safer hunter picks, though, so if anyone needed to just withstand the storm that is Yark, yeah, I mean, Hachi's all right for it. Maybe you go towards something like a Jingwei if you're really concerned about safety, but I think the added benefit of boosting the attack speed of your team with Heavenly Banner enough to dissuade the Solar Scarabs from switching off of that one. Mercury, Baba Yaga once more. Late game slanted composition already starting to form up here for the Solar Scarabs. And the Camelot Kings are in a position now where they still have the opportunity to make the decision as to the identity of their team. With just Anhur and Ganesh, you can all in on early game aggression, try and catch the Solar Scarabs in that early, put them behind, play into that team fight with a massive advantage. Or the Camelot Kings still have the opportunity to go for a late game slanted composition and try and play into the Solar Scarabs at that 25-30 minute mark. Hard to say which one would be more successful for the Kings because we've had very different iterations of this team throughout the year. But I would say, considering the pace of Game 1, I would like to see the Camelot Kings get at least a little bit more early game aggression in their draft, at least throughout the jungle. I think get something where Twig can get involved early on, and that'll do a lot of the lifting for you.
Speed up the game a little bit for the Camelot Kings. Not the adjustment I was expecting to see changed here for the Kings, taking Deathwalker's Bellona away, now putting in the hands of Variety for the Camelot Kings. So now the Solar Scarabs, their front line is going to be completely new. at least going into game number 2 with both Ganesh and Bellona originally on their team, now drafted for the Camelot Kings. Question is, what does now iSilenced and Deathwalker go towards? Deathwalker's got quite the god pool himself, so maybe more of a question of what is Deathwalker feeling like playing, because he came into this day saying, I don't know what's going on. I thought I had a good grasp, but clearly I don't, so I'm just going to play whatever feels right. So let's see what feels right for Deathwalker and what feels good for iSilenced in the support role. But now knowing that there is no frontline, your primary CC is going to, at the moment, come from your Mercury. He's going to go for these picks. What are a couple of gods that might slot well with what the Scarabs have drafted?
Man, it's interesting, right? This Bellona pick has thrown me for a loop. It really has. I mean, I'm so surprised to see it locked into that slot. It feels to me almost entirely to be a denial from Deathwalker, but was Bellona really that pick for the Solar Scarabs? Oh, man. I'm trying to figure out now what the Camelot Kings team fight identity is going to look like, right? And we'll get a lot of that answered by mage selection or whatever it is that BigManTingz decides to take for himself, but this Bellona really has slowed me down. It stun locked me, J-Mac. I'm so sorry. The Solar Scarabs, on the other hand, I mean, they're calm. I mean, it just makes sense. Run it back. That's fine with me. Maybe you put Deathwalker on one of his signatures. Wouldn't hate to see a tier in this spot. The only thing that could really slow it down is that Ganesh having that silence to prevent the Fearless combo. Might make it difficult for Deathwalker to make contact with high priority targets in the back line. But I mean, it really, it's just so interesting. I just find it so interesting that Bellona got locked in where she did.
Well, pick we were calling for in game 1 has potential for CaptainTwig. The Hunbats hit that level 5. Now you've got a great team fight going on with it. When you throw a pair of things along with it, like Ganesh, Bellona, you got a lot of great CC and kind of follow-up to go along with that. But now maybe looking for the damage on the Camelot Kings. We'll see what BMT decides to draft up. Went with the Vulcan last game. We'll see if he goes back to that here in game number 2. So now it's Solar Scarabs to see what their front line is going to be. What does Deathwalker want to play today? What are they going to give over to iSilenced? Sobek has been a classic for a lot of the EU SCC support players. It's also been a bit of time in the solo lane, though I think we're kind of pushing ourselves more towards the Warrior solo, so maybe not going to see that one in the hands of Deathwalker. So what is that final selection for the Solar Scarabs going to be? They've got their 2 forms of initiation now with Mercury and Sobek. Maybe a third one so you don't have to put it so much in the hands of the jungler. Could be an option for the Solar Scarabs, as they and we kind of bide our time to see what Deathwalker is going to be locking in for that final pick.
And you know, the issue of who's going to be initiating the fight is true on both sides here. The Camelot Kings have guaranteed initiation from Hunbots, but something we always talk about with Hunbots is who else is burning the beads. And you don't exactly have guaranteed beads burners. Ganesh can do it to a certain extent with remove obstacles, but for the most part, that's a very risky single target CC that puts you in a very aggressive position. Anhur can do it, single target, impale, and conditional that there's a structure or a wall nearby as well. So I'd like to see additional initiation from the Camelot Kings as well. Osiris to round out the draft for the Solar Scarabs. Not exactly that Paragon of CC that we were calling for, but still has the ability to disrupt the backline, can win out in that 1v1 trade up against Bellona. Always having those cleave auto attacks means Osiris generally gets advantage in the laning phase, and some of the most recent changes to Osiris, allowing that sickle to travel through wave, has really boosted his poke potential as well as his wave clear. So interesting, and a matchup I'll be keeping my eyes on. And then the Raijin for mid. I mean, it is some CC, it is guaranteed beads burn, and to a certain extent AoE as well, so will be a little bit more difficult now for the Solar Scarabs to hold on to their own defensive relics, but it is a very high execution composition, I think, here for the Camelot Kings. If Raijin Ultimate does not result in a kill, and I'm assuming Raijin Ultimate is for the most part going to be used after Fear No Evil in the true team fight, I can't see the Camelot Kings chasing out afterward, but I can see the Camelot Kings just decimating that first guy. I mean, there is very high potential that the first point of contact on a 5-on-5, if the Camelot Kings are the ones aggressing, they just eviscerate them. It doesn't matter if it's Sobek or Osiris. There is a lot of single target CC lockdown and decent space control between Dharmic Pillars and Fear No Evil, that their late game 5-on-5 can look pretty decent. The only X factor, the only thing I'm keeping my eye on for the Camelot Kings that's maybe worrying me for their late game potential is that Bellona.
So kind of taking game 1 into account, back and forth, maybe 6 kills total by the time we're hitting around that 20-25 minute mark for those last couple big team fights really break out. game sitting around dead even. We were calling for maybe a faster pace for the Camelot Kings to maybe try and catch the Scarabs off surprise. Is this a composition that can get off to a faster pace than we saw in game number 1, or does this feel like we might be kind of pushing a little bit longer, similar to that first game?
There's nuance to that question. It's actually really interesting. I think that the duo lane for the Camelot Kings, of course, can get aggressive. Anytime you have an Anhur, I don't care who your support is, has potential to get aggressive in lane. But generally, that dual lane aggression is predicated by the jungler at least being nearby. But because you have Hun bots in the jungle, you're at least waiting until first, maybe second item, until you really want to get involved in the fight. You really want Jotuns before Fear No Evil goes down, and you really don't have single kill potential or individual kill potential until you have Hydra's Lament on top of it. So that does slant it a little bit more so towards the mid game. Raijin is a lane bully. We've seen what he's been able to accomplish over in the Soul lane. Will only do more damage out of mid. But again, mid laners fights generally predicated on jungle presence. Hun bots doesn't exactly have that until level 6, 7, or 8, somewhere in there. So there is potential by individual picks for the Camelot Kings to play a little bit faster, but when I look at this draft, it really does scream to me late game team fight.
Solar Scarabs got the upper edge in game number 1, put themselves on a lead and are now 1 game away from qualifying to the winner's side of the bracket. Can the Scarabs keep that up, or can the Kings stop them here and take us to game 3? Let's jump right into game number 2.
Backs against the wall for the Camelot Kings here. If they want to avoid falling down to the loser's side of the bracket, they have to even out this set here. They have to push us to a game number 3. It's Frog, it's Trelly, still bringing to the action. Doug, of course, bringing us through the battleground. And these comp changes definitely signify, I mean, you see some that may be expected, right? You take the Bellona away from Deathwalker on the other side. You give CaptainTwig the Hun Batz he's gone to time and time again over the years. My biggest takeaway maybe is their first pick. Chernobog was open, was unbanned, and instead they first pick Jarcorrr this Anhur. So adding pressure to the duel lane.
Love that. So much better than the Cherno as far as early pressure goes. The Anhur just comes out swinging, one of the top ADCs for a reason. And we saw last game, the Solar Scarabs knew how to deal with the Chernobog. They said, hey, instead of chasing him around, instead of letting Jarcorrr split push and trying to stop, let's just pull an objective. Let's just fight. And they collapsed on him the second he hit the ground. He got one impactful ult off towards that tier 2 last game, and he touched the ground and was like immediately dead. So that's not going to be the case this time around. Jarcorrr wants some more control in the lane. This is one of his best picks for trying to find solo kills. I like this switch up a lot. Not to mention, now you got CaptainTwig on the Hun Batch, who he can just find the most impactful ultimates in the world if you give him the opportunity to. So I do like the switch ups here. Not to say that I don't like a lot of what the Solar Scarabs got back. Zyrhoes going back to the Baba Yaga, that's always going to be strong. Apreel getting his hands on Mercury again, something that I definitely didn't expect.
Yeah, I think a lot of pressure came through the Mercury. Didn't expect as much, or not as much as I expected in the early game, right? We talked in game number 1 about how that pressure would be dictated by the junglers, and then they both didn't press 4 for 10 minutes. But, I mean, this time around, we might see more of the same. I think Apreel was very satisfied to just hang out, get some of those items, those power spike items online. Of course, if he gets caught out early, might spell a little bit of damage there as we see the Kings get pressure over towards that mid lane. And that changes the matchup. You have the exact same mid 2v2 matchup there on the side of the Scarabs. You've changed it now completely for the Kings. Hun Batz, something we've seen Twig on before. This Raijin, though, I got to admit, I didn't expect to see it this weekend really at all, just because it's fallen out of favor in the Soul lane.
Yeah, it's not my favorite, especially not in the mid lane, so we'll have to see what BigManTingz can do on the pick. I'm glad I can finally talk about Osiris, because this man got changed, I mean, months ago, and we had not seen him at all, maybe a bit. Like, I think there was a jungle attempt, but besides that, Osiris has just been out of the meta, so finally we get to discuss how the fact that Sickle now goes through minions. That's awesome. You get to throw the one, doesn't get stopped in the first minion you see, you can max it, it's on such a short cooldown, has plenty of damage, plenty of poke. The auto attack presence of an Osiris is still very annoying to deal with, especially when you look at some of the characters on the Camelot Kings that can't get away from Tether. One of the most annoying abilities in the game when you're constantly getting slowed by that Sickle. So I expect Deathwalker to be an absolute menace on this pick for, I would say, the next 20 minutes. There is a fall-off period, of course, late game, but until like 25, 26 minutes, he should be fearless at this point.
Fearless is, well, there's no tier.
Right. He's not going to use Fearless. He will be Fearless.
Okay. even though there's a fear no evil, like if he gets caught in the ultimate.
Well, he's not going to fear because he's Osiris. He has mitigations.
Right. No, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, we might even see him be fearless as he looks to invade the blue buff.
Told
but
you.
Nope, it's just apreel. He's actually chasing away Quig over at his buff, beadsing. What a crazy interaction. Beads is the disarm to get the blue buff steal. On the other side, Quig gets the blue buff steal. And despite what feels like action, it feels like action just occurred. That's certainly how I'm feeling. Everybody's full HP. CaptainTwig will walk away with the speed buff and back safely. Nobody wants to interact. Everybody just wants farm.
I mean, that's a real one. Apreel said, hey, I came here for the blue buff. I'm leaving with the blue buff. I'm popping my beads just to try and get the auto attack down to get this blue buff. Now, it does put you in a little bit of danger towards CaptainTwig, but Twig takes the old scenic route, takes the speed buff on his way out. Not going to be a terrible look, but Variety does use Eagle's Rally. I mean, Deathwalker's got Death Toll. He should be able to sustain that damage up. There may be some opportunity to find a gank over towards solo lane once Apreel gets that ultimate online and heads over, but Variety's definitely getting the better end of the trades for now. Bellona does, have her strength in these boxing trades, especially in a full wave with your hammer popped.
I think at the pace this game is going, we would be hard-pressed to see any action, but of course I'm going to eat my words as Quig is collapsed on an apreel. The fear no evil is well-timed, and you get punished for beadsing the disarm as you don't have the relic there on the left-hand side. This time, first blood to the Kings.
Yep, that's exactly what I was talking about. Your beads are down, and unfortunately, Apreel fired the Sonic Boom a little bit too soon. Silence plucked Quig, but the ultimate didn't connect. Apreel ults right underneath him. Sure, gets the special delivery, but once you use special delivery, guess what? Twig comes around the corner, unbeknownst to the Solar Scarabs, and finds a massive ultimate. And your dash is already down. There was no way he was going to be able to make it out of there. So, unfortunate aggression and well played as Quig takes a lot, and the body block comes through, but does Silence have the damage? It doesn't seem like it.
The dash gets blocked by Silence.
Oh, yes, the ult.
The ultimate through, and Echrome able to trade the kill back. Gold stays even, kills stay even. This time, though, earlier trades and damage. At only 5 minutes into the game, we got some kills on the board.
My man was big brain. He started getting some auto attacks. I thought he was trying to kill with gooseberries, but no. He's like, I need some MP5 so I can fire off this mounted archery, and finds it perfectly. CaptainTwig camping out near the blue buff. Wants to go in for an invade, but here comes Apreel as well. Deathwalker is just going to have to help over the wall here. I'm not thinking this is a fight. This is more of a let's go for a steal, see what we can do. And Variety gets to pick up that blue buff, no problem. So pressure still over on the right side of the map. That's going to help out with CaptainTwig. He's going that Hunbats, right? He's not going to have that same spike that Apreel has. But as long as you're fighting with Fear No Evil, as long as you're fighting when that ultimate is up, you're not going to have a problem. You're not going to have to worry about those crits for quite some time.
Favoring pressure here for the Kings as we start to see a couple of buff invades, right? Didn't even see anybody step past that midway point to try that in game number 1 early stages. But now the Kings have gotten away with 2 in a row, and Twig comes back and steals the red as well, just taking little by little farm away from Apreel here. And you see he's already got a little bit of a lead, maybe half level to a full level up on this Mercury. And we talked about, I mean, Mercury felt so free to farm in game number 1. He had Rage, and his team had 4 kills, and he had 4 Rage stacks. He just is there, and when he's there, he's making an impact. And other than that, he just gets to hyper farm. This time around, if Twig keeps this pace up a little bit, forces the issue a little bit more, have to imagine that Apreel ends up under a little bit more pressure.
That seems to be the case for now. Like, hey, let's not let this Mercury hyper farm. Let's not let him get free kills, and that has been the call. Dharma Pillars dropped just to try and force something out of Echrome, but not going to be too much. Mounted Archery traded out. So we see the ultimate there, and of course Jarcorrr sends out that Desert Fury just for some DPS. And no kills netted on the left side of the map. I think that was a one-time thing that both junglers were over in duo lane at the same time. Seems like right side of the map, mid, back camps. Those are really where we're going to find these junglers for the majority of this early game. I do want to see fights towards left side of the map, and that's where the junglers are headed now. It looks like that shield buff is a high point of contention, and Twig's taking damage.
Yeah, he's down a half HP. Fear No Evil was used there, and you get the beads off of Apreel, but now the Sonic Boom comes through, and Jarcorrr CC chain is beautiful. Now needs to find the pluck, but doesn't even need it. The damage is there, and Apreel will get traded out in kind. Another late rotation by CaptainTwig, and it's another 1-for-1 in the duel lane.
That was a death that did not need to happen, Frog. Apreel used that dash to try and confirm a kill that was already confirmed. It seemed like Silenced had the Sickening Strike, was like, do you want me to steal it? Should I do it? Should I do it? He didn't want to confirm that kill, didn't want to take it from his team. Realized he should, ended up using it. And then Apreel dashes underneath the tower and ends up taking a ton of damage from CaptainTwig. So yeah, you're getting rage stacks. You're not upset about that. But giving another kill over to the enemy jungler, CaptainTwig sitting 2-0, that's also not something you're too happy about.
Apreel grouping up with the team on these right mids. I'm looking at the jungle builds, and because I heard it on the desk, Myth was talking about this 2-item spike for Hunbats coming through when you get that hi-rez Lament in second slot. And CaptainTwig opting to go in a little bit of a different direction, a big power spike there in the Erendite second item. What are you thinking about that?
I'm a big fan of the Erendite. It's an item that got some buffs. It can do some extra damage. It helps you out after you pop that ultimate. And what did I say earlier on? If you're fighting with Fear No Evil, you're having a good time, Erendite is just going to augment your Fear No Evil. You make sure that you're scrapping with that ultimate. So I don't mind it one bit. It's going to be the extra CDR. It's sort of replacing that bridge item of hi-rez Lament. Maybe Twig still goes it anyways, but either way, CDR, buff to your ultimate, all things that Hunbats wants to go for.
A 2-item spike right around the corner for this Hunbats. 2-0, entirely holding the kills there for the Camelot Kings. But despite those kills being traded, right, it's actually the Solar Scarabs holding on to a little bit of a lead. And I say that, it's nice to point out a 300 gold lead. It doesn't really matter, though, right? Like, we're 9 minutes, 10 minutes into the game, and it feels very much shades of game number 1. And I'm expecting the first fights, the first real fights, to be maybe around this 12-minute beacon, maybe 15 minutes around something like the Gold Fury that's now been up on the map for 5 minutes. If you're looking at those clinch points in the game, right, those pinch points, I suppose, which team do you expect to have the advantage to really start the foot forward?
I mean, at this point, I still look towards Apreel because he has so much more DPS with the crits. His Variety getting very low. Earlier on, Variety and Deathwalker both up-down on the totem, trying to ult for it, trying to confirm it. Deathwalker got it, but that means Variety didn't have the ultimate. You're going to get hit by every single tether, and almost a solo kill, but Variety was able to make it out, and that Eagles rally did come back up, so I don't think there was any fear of a solo kill coming through. I mean, Pillar's forcing the ult out of Echrome, and there's a reason for that. CaptainTwig's nearby. He would love to try and find a Fear No Evil underneath that Hachiman now that the ult's gone.
Traded out, and I thought it might be more pressure, but Twig just chooses to back, and once again, waiting for the ideal moment, and eyes onto the junglers. You get the ult from Apreel that's been such a driver in these last couple of games. You've had the ultimate successful 2-0, but even before that, beads now burned off of Echrome. And CaptainTwig, he goes back to base. He comes right back to the left side of the map. You force the dual lane down. And maybe an opportunity for the Gold Fury. But now CaptainTwig, you know that he's holding onto that beads timer in his head.
Oh, for sure. Echrome's in a lot of trouble. The sprint was used by iSilenced as well, so ward coverage is going to be key on the left side of the map, especially with Blink available like CaptainTwig has right now. I'm thinking purple buff, tower, repeat. That is where Echrome needs to be for the next 140 seconds or so. And that's exactly what I expect to see. But as you said, Gold Fury is still a possibility. I think that the Solar Scarabs aren't going to be the ones that want to pull it immediately unless they have some great information. The Camelot Kings, however, they are a team that they know exactly when they have a free opportunity. They know when they've got vision. They know when they have the burst. I don't think they are going to pull and overcommit, but if they have an opportunity to go in for an objective, they will certainly do so, especially when Echrome is backing over in lap. Like, this would be a great opportunity if they knew that Silence was backing as well. They don't have that ward coverage, but if you give them an opportunity like that and they have the backup of the knowledge to, figure it out, they'll go for a play like that for sure.
Man, even Apreel's backing. That would have been a pretty golden opportunity if they identified it.
I see what you did there.
This game around, we've seen some changes in the draft. Of course, we talked about a lot of those early on. Haven't talked about how these supports have changed, and we won't get to. if this beacon continues to get contested. Just the Kings on it thus far, but Silenced, apreel stepping in, Quig low, and the damage traded out thus far, but Silenced got to be careful he doesn't bite off more than he can chew. He'll have to give up the beacon, the 4-man rotation from the Kings. The first neutral objective goes the way of the SPL squad.
Yeah, they have been on point. If nothing else, on the beacons. The Camelot Kings show up. Sometimes Variety teleports in when necessary. This time wasn't necessary, and they get out. They never overstay their welcome, so not bad at all. First leg back up, trying to catch up the gold lead as well that the Solar Scarabs have been able to build for themselves. But it looks like Echrome will be able to stall out that beats timer. I thought it would be a great opportunity for Twig, but considering how far back this Hachiman had been playing, the Mounted Archer is going to get you out of most situations. So I can see why Twig didn't want to overstep and try and force the gank over and left, especially when Beacon spawned in. And as we already mentioned, it's something they try and go for pretty consistently. But Pyromancer's a different story. This is a little bit more pullable. It's not the end of the world if you lose it. But the Mercury's here. He's got double crit. Didn't quite go into Deathbringer. Apreel's got the Demon Blade. So still, good DPS to pull an objective early.
Interesting switch up in the build there. I suppose not as much pressure. Wants to make sure that he can get that item online. Now on the right side of the map, though, Apreel and Twig both rotating over. And as you mentioned, around that Pyromancer now on the right side of the map that these questions might be asked. Fear no evil, all of the ultimates available on the side of the Kings. And certainly they've got the pressure, but perhaps a little bit hesitant to pick it up. They don't have that big, secure ultimate in the Earthshaker like they did in game number 1. And my eyes, they've been caught by one item, Trelly. And it's over there in the support role.
The Mantle of Discord?
The Mantle of Discord on Sobek. What is the logic behind this second item pickup? I feel like we don't see it that often.
Not second item, we sure don't. And I think my mindset was Silenced is... He doesn't want to get locked down from Fear No Evil into, Quig Silence. Like, there's just so much room for that. So it's going to proc when he gets low and he can pluck out. That's the idea. I assume that's the reason. And the Solar Scarabs have no fear of any of those things because there was no one nearby. Go ahead and grab that Runic Bomb. That goes into Deathwalker's pocket. And the Pyromancer gets down for absolute free.
And we talk about a lot about the Sobek brain and the ability to just, you see a pluck, you have to press the pluck button. But then if you get beads, you're suddenly caught in their front line. You're not
anymore.
You're not as caught.
Now it's a stun.
You get guaranteed, you stun the entire team. You put yourself in there, and you're a kamikaze. You get in the back line, they'll get you low, but you'll get them stunned.
If you stun 5 people with Mantle of Discord, I've never seen that. I want to see it, but I've never seen that. So we'll have to see if Silence can pull off a play like that. Let's start with just stunning, the carries that are DPSing you after a pluck. That's my mindset. But hey, it's a lot of gold. That's why we don't see it too often, because you are putting a lot of gold into a support item, which most supports at this point are putting points into their relics. As you can see, Quig has the Cloak of the Ascetic. He's got cooldown meditation already online. That's usually where the gold's going. Silence said, I got all my gold right here, man. That's my Mantle of Discord.
Silence doesn't even it doesn't even cost money to pick up that second relic, and he's level 13. You would think that he would, there it is. It's right there.
He was thinking, man.
Yeah, he needed to make sure he had the right decision. Ends up picking up the shell. And these are very different relic ideas on either side, right? You have the sprint and the shell on one side, and then bracer meditation on the other side. But hold that thought, Jarcorrr under some pressure here, has to jump away and will do so, but the Major Look takes down the kill, and Jarcorrr 6 feet under, but look for the blink. 3-man Fear No Evil, and CaptainTwig onto the damage, but apreel somehow is able to survive. Everybody from the Scarabs gets away scot-free, and it's only the one pick onto Jarcorrr.
My man pre-Aegis, he knew that ult was coming. Quig walked over a ward at some point, and apreel said, hey, as long as you can't DPS me during this ultimate, my team's got my back. They had plenty of CC. Now Echrome, you don't have your ultimate, and here comes BigManTingz. He's got plenty of damage. Thunder crash in. This ultimate's got to find a kill.
Dash over the wall. Shell not good enough, but it might be there for the trade as Quig.
The body blocks!
Body blocks are beautiful, as Silenced will not be able to chase out much longer. The peel from Quig is fantastic, and BigManTingz able to pick up Echrome.
Yeah, you got to find a kill there. Echrome definitely bites off a little bit more than he could chew. Silenced. Remember, Mantle of Discord's going to come in It might be a 3-man stun if he can get close. No, just 2. Body blocked by the pillar. Is there a chase down potential? Apreel, what are you doing?
He gets slowed down. The chase is there. 4 members strong for the Kings, but I don't know that they want to chase this as much as they want the objective. Gold Fury now respawn on the map. It's still the first Gold Fury on the map that they're looking to take. Deathwalker is around. It looks like him with the backup of the rest of the Scarabs will be enough for the Camelot Kings to hesitate. And the power play, just like that, has dissipated. They won't be able to pick up the objective.
Yeah, gotta go back to basic with the Solar Scarabs. It looks like the Gold Fury would be a nice prize, but Silence is so weak. Deathwalker is here, though, zoning out variety for the time being as BigManTingz makes his return.
They're on Gold Fury.
They are on it. It's weak, but Quig goes in.
Fear no evil hits nobody, and he teleports to the back of the fight. The horse comes through. One more
Banner.
auto with a banner is enough to do it. Twig, I don't know if he meant to teleport all the way that far back in the fight, but you take down the jungler and the Gold Fury getting low now for the Scarabs, but the Kings walk in and take it away, and the immediate disengage
Apreel has
is
ult.
here. They could look to chase a little bit farther, but Quig makes it out alive, and in the end, it'll be jungle for Gold Fury.
Wow, Apreel wanted to fire off that Sonic Boom, but Jarcorrr put the pillar up and said, no way, you can't get to the back line here. Beautiful plays throughout from both squads. I mean, the Solar Scarabs, they play their aggression. They make sure that Twig gets punished, but unfortunately, the Camelot Kings are able to confirm that objective for themselves and get out. They do not step too far forward. As Quig and Silence are playing a bit of a game of chicken here. See which one is going to stick around with low HP first, and it doesn't seem like anyone's going to bail until BigManTingz shows up. Then Silence might want to leave.
I like this. I like this game. They're just sitting there staring at each other. Echrome is the one that rotates over, and they decide they don't want to deal with that because they're on the Pyromancer. The Scarabs take down the objective. Shell's good, looking to turn it around, and
Wow.
Quig dives too far and gets taken down under the tier 1 tower. Scarabs, they got the Pyromancer as well. They got the beacon as well. Everything coming up Scarabs.
I mean, that was a risky call. Apreel gets so low tanking up that Pyro. I love what the Camelot Kings did where they collapsed, but then Twig, he did one step too far. The jump in was a little bit risky. Of course, that was through Silence's Shell and Apreel's Aegis, so it's not as if it was for nothing. I understand where his head's at. Hey, if I just get this kill, it's worth it. But you didn't. You get 2 relics, and the Pyromancer goes down. Another Runic Bomb for Deathwalker. He used the first one on his tier 1. That went down, put some gold in their pocket. And he's got another one he can use whenever he wants. So I think Twig needs to dial it back and start farming, because a level 15 Hun Batz doesn't look too scary at 20 minutes.
Yeah, it is a rough level deficit. He is the same level as his support, as the enemy support, Apreel, up at level 18. And he's looking to take the 1v1. CaptainTwig falls again. Apreel, no emotion
My man
in the
sniffed,
player
that
cam.
man wiped his nose. He said, all right, Twig's gone.
Just a pick, clean and concise from the Mercury. We were talking to him in between games. He didn't think he was going to get this pick again. He didn't think they would give him the Mercury, but he's certainly putting on the pressure here. And the grouping around this tier 1 tower. We're nearing that 20-minute mark. We're nearing the shred here that we talked about in game number 2, and Charlie, the Fire Giant is starting to be questioned.
It certainly is. This would be the time to do so. Jarcorrr has a lot of catching up to do. Doesn't have that kin size online. 2 levels down. Wants to stay over on left. You don't got to worry about a Chernobog, right? He's on her this time around, so can't fly over. This could be a true 4v5 if they went for a Fire Giant call, but the Scarabs are just going to play this one slow. Quig most certainly dying off this pluck. There's no way he's surviving that one. The Taiko drums comes out just for fun, and now the Scarabs have their opportunity. They should walk up to this Fire Giant immediately.
Not only do you get the pick onto the support, but you get the Mage ultimate as well. Relics down for another 30 seconds for Twig. It'll be an ask and a half for the Kings to step up to this one, and they've got to do it quick. Fire Giant is being shredded down, and the Solar Scarabs will get it on 5. All of a sudden, this feels like a dominant performance. The Solar Scarabs have flipped a switch, a 6K gold lead here, and a Fire Giant at 22 minutes.
Yep, they've got plenty of real estate once again. I feel like this is a repeat of last game where I'm like, all right, they have a lot of towers to go through. The beacon's about to decide when the Titans are coming out. This is all, you know, going the same sort of way. And then it was just one team fight that absolutely ended the game. Late game Mercury, he's got a lot of crit online. Zyrhoes has been able to stay, you know, pretty out of the danger so far as I'm concerned. The Baba Yaga, 1-0-2. Relics available. You know, when has Zyrhoes been under any fire this game? Not much. So you're getting to that late game point where your carries are feeling nice and safe because the dive is just non-existent at the moment. You don't want variety diving the backline with 2 defense items to his name. CaptainTwig still wants some farm. The Camelot Kings desperately need 8 more minutes before a fight could happen.
Yeah, they need time to get back into this game. Luckily, Phoenixes aren't exposed just yet. Tier 2 towers in the map, still an early fire giant. Granted, last time we said the same thing, and it was just one fight that ended it all. But I'm looking at the starters. Upgraded starters. It's for several members here of the Scarabs. Only one of those upgraded starters there on the side of the Kings. So far, though, to start this off, they're a little bit split. Only 2 members here from the Scarabs on the left-hand side. And answered back by positioning from the Kings. So nobody's willing to group up just yet. Deathwalker, he's got the Runic Bomb. No, he's used the Runic Bomb.
He used it on right already, yeah. He's been working on this tower. This is his little solo project. He really, like, guys, please back up. I need to get this tier 2 on my own. You can push what you want, but this one is mine. Like, I need to get this tier 2 down by myself. Maybe one more Pyromancer could do it. That could help him out.
It's up right now. They could look for the objective, give it to him in his back pocket. But, I mean, the Solar Scarabs essentially just putting themselves in a position where if the Kings make a mistake, they're in a position to punish, right? They've got members all across the map. And you can ask for plays like this, where you put the shred onto the objective. You get Mercury to shred down that Pyromancer, and you get Deathwalker to just fight CaptainTwig under the tier 2 tower. You know who's here to join him? Apreel has come through. You drop the Fear No Evil, and you drop the ultimate from Deathwalker. CaptainTwig once again in the gray screen. And they found the right tier 2 as well. They're threatening the Phoenix.
I mean, that's his ult, that's his beats down. Even if he comes back in, he'd be in trouble. But tier 2 gone. Phoenix not looking so good either. The Solar Scarabs have to back up for the time being, but they're pushing into mid Phoenix as well.
They're pushing in here. They're looking to try and take the objectives here. Let's go to a listening with the Solar Scarabs. They're pushing down the Phoenix.
Push mid.
Yeah, get out, get out, get out, get out.
I'm psyching.
Run right. Run.
I can spin you, I'll spin you.
Yeah, alright. Guys, back up. Wait, let's get
Wait,
Beacon.
yeah.
Guys, Beacon, this is Titan, and then we can end with that.
Yeah.
You can hear the calm, collected voice, right? They just start with making calls. I think the most energy there is at the end when Deathwalker realizes they got both birds, starts to plan for the future. They get Beacon, the objectives are going to be respawning. The Solar Scarabs have the entire map to play with.
Yeah, and now we get to see, number 1, how they're going to play with this Titan. I heard the call was to end off the Titan. Could be risky, but they've got the damage to do so. Remember, CaptainTwig, no beads for 100 seconds. If apreel hits an ultimate, CaptainTwig is dead without the help of his team. If he goes off to farm by himself, maybe towards these oracles, this is where it happened last time, but luckily apreel is not ready, lined up with the ultimate at those oracles. Either way, I'd be looking for the Hunbats 1v1 here. I mean, look at the Merc build. Sure, you don't have beads, but if you hit the ult, he's not going to get a chance to drop his. You can just, that CC chain is ridiculous, so make sure you're paying attention. Titans coming down left. 3 Camelot Kings on the left side of the map, channeling back. Silence can't catch him out, so it looks like they're going to have to play Titan defense here.
It's all on the Scarabs as for what they want to do next. At this point, Fire Giant has fallen off these 5 members, so if they want to push for this end, I mean, this would be a tough ask. Sure, you get the 6th man in the form of the Titan. You're going to be able to push down this tier 2 perhaps, but I mean, look at the Fire Giant respawn. This is about to respawn. You're going to have 4 members of the Scarabs in right. If the Kings are smart about this, they could take advantage of this positioning.
I'm looking at Deathwalker's consumables, and my man said, forget gooseberries, I want a 3K pot. He said, we are ending off this time. Did I stutter? We are getting the beacon, and I am ending the game. That's their game plan, Frog. I'm not sure if they have, the damage, but they have the confidence to back it up. It looks like there was an audible call at some point. Fire Giant.
Somebody overruled Deathwalker.
Someone should be looking towards apreel. I'll solo it, bro. Like, I can do it myself. Just keep pushing or something. I like this call a lot better. You got to remember, you are up 1-0, yes, but think about the implications. You win this 2-0, One more win and you're going to World. It's a big deal. So the Solar Scarabs are going to play this one slow. They're not going to risk anything. They want to make sure that they grab the Fire Giant and then push in for this end call. The Titan would have helped, but I think FG on 5 is a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the Camelot Kings, you've got to be thinking about, oh wait, I mean, this is not the end of your road if you were to lose this game. Only going down a loser's bracket, right? Not knocked out quite yet. But you don't want to do that. You want to push to game 3, right? And certainly you have a composition that can defend. Fear No Evil has won games by itself.
It definitely has.
I mean, if you're the Kings, what are you looking at to get back into this game?
You're looking for the Miracle Ultimate from Twig, 100%. But the issue is he's not level 20 yet. He needs a little bit more safe farm. And, of course, you want the Solar Scarabs to overextend. The crit helps a lot for DPS towards carries, but it's not as if apreel brings that much Titan damage. That's coming from Zyrhoes. That's coming from Echrome. So you play it safe. You sit at this Titan. You turtle up. You say, hey, we're going to be sitting here. We don't want to leave our shells, if at all possible. Sure, this Phoenix is going to go down likely, but you try to make them use as much as possible. Relics, ultimates, whatever it takes, so that they can't seize a Titan afterwards.
Apreel position here to try and find an impactful Sonic Boom would rip through the entirety of the Kings if they want to find this engage in the left Phoenix. Dharmic Pillars dropped, and that's a free ultimate. They don't burn anything to get the Dharmic Pillars from Twig. They can just keep waiting for these waves to push. They've got Fire Minions pushing down right.
Yeah, it looks like apreel and Deathwalker are more so focused on Titan damage and the Phoenixes that are respawning. They're going to grab those for free, while the rest of the Scarabs so disciplined, not stepping up, not using any relics, not using any ultimates, just waiting. And now the Camelot Kings, they see their opportunity. Should they fight in the 5v3? No. They're going to have to back up. They lose the 2 birds anyways.
They try to push into the 5v3, but now finally Deathwalker pops the 3k pot as he's pushing down the mid-Phoenix, and it's Variety getting shredded down. Has to use the beads, but a pre-Aegis once again from apreel, and the ultimate off the mark from Deathwalker, but the space is there, and the left Phoenix will fall. The Titan down low, 75% HP, and the health bars from the Solar Scarabs are high. They don't want to end just yet, and Zyrhoes may be overstepping a little bit. CaptainTwig takes down the mid laner, and now silenced, slowed down, and taken down. If they can find the last bit of damage, it'll be CaptainTwig once again looking for it. Variety finds it. And they will lose all 3 birds, but they keep their Titan alive.
And that's the goal, right? You'll keep all 3 Titans alive, but it looks like the Camelot Kings know the position they're in. They have to step forward. They have to find something else. With 3 birds down, it's not easy to defend an Enhanced Fire Giant, and that's the territory you need to be looking towards now. The Solar Scarabs, they want EFG. They want to play it slow until their team gets back up, get their relics, get their ultimates. The Camelot Kings, they have 3 different waves of Fire Minions to push out. They realize they can win a fight if the Solar Scarabs overcommit. If it's focus on the Titan, focus on the Phoenixes, they can find their opportunities, but they just can't force them. It is just not going to work out. The Camelot Kings got a ward up in the jungle, and I think go back to turtling. There's 2 different mindsets here, Frog. I've seen teams make both calls, one of which is you group up in the jungle and hope someone walks up, you try to find a pick. The other is you do not leave the base. With 3 birds down and a Mercury, it's just scary. If you get caught out anywhere in the jungle, the game could end like that. So I think the Camelot Kings should take the safer of the 2 options. Just clear out waves where in the remnants of where your Phoenix used to stand, and just get ready for a possible defense.
This time around, the defense could not be harder. This is everything stacked against the Kings at this moment. And that's not even including the potential EFG that's right around the corner. Fire Giant, of course, now fallen off the rest of the Solar Scarabs, and the one that will be spawning will be enhanced. Won't necessarily matter for the backdoor protections at the moment, all 3 of those Phoenixes down, but gives you a little bit more power, a lot more potential to find those picks, find those kills, the end of the game. And, I mean, if you're the Camelot Kings, sure, you want to turtle, you want to push up these waves. Is there any face that can be shown around this EFG?
Well, first of all, I just love that it looks like Deathwalker is behind Variety, because they have like mirrored last items, but Deathwalker's just still trying to finish it because he bought a 3k pot before selling his recipe. He's like, you know what, forget it. Forget Manslow Discord. I just want the gooseberries. Now he's caught up, build-wise. Still has that 3k pot. Rolling, of course, so this Osiris is going to be an unkillable menace. But this is the only opportunity the Kings have. Push up as much as you can. That's what they've done. They have like 2 waves on left that'll push up those fire waves, 2 waves in mid, and they are clearing right as we speak. And they need to commit to this enhanced fire giant right now or look for the fight. If not, the minions won the game, and they're going to commit. They're starting it already.
Committal is there. Quig drops the damage. The fire giant getting shredded down, but they second-guess themselves.
He's
Everybody hops off, and Jarcorrr is gone. Apreel is a one-man army in the back line, but his team is there to help out. Quig falls. Variety takes down Zyrhoes, but Apreel finds a double kill. It is only 2 remaining members here for the Camelot Kings. 4 versus 2. Fire minions pushing in. Apreel is low, but this has to be a miracle defense from the Kings. Variety under pressure and will not be able to do it. Twig won't be able to do it, and the Solar Scarabs take it at 2-0.
The defending world champs fall down to the losers bracket, and the Solar Scarabs brushing off their shoulders like it was nothing. I cannot believe Apreel gets Mercury twice. I cannot believe the gameplay that we just witnessed, but man, was it clean from the Solar Scarabs. You got to tip your hat to the EUSCC here. They brought it on day 1.
I couldn't say it better myself. A clean 2-0 victory. I don't feel like their success was really questioned in either game. I mean, you get slow early games for sure, but once it turned on, once you get to that late game, they felt so confident in those team fights and exactly how they wanted to play the game. I mean, it certainly bodes well. I know now what Deathwalker was saying with satire. There's no way they didn't. Like,
Nope.
They look incredibly clean.
Nope, they were clean. They knew their siege. They knew how strong Apreel and Deathwalker's split push would be. They said, hey, you 3 sit there. Don't overextend. Don't lose the fight. They played it so patiently. They never stepped into Phoenix. They never used any ultimates. Dark Pillars come up. They just backed up. They didn't relic. They just waited and saved for their opportunity, which came right about that 30-minute mark.
Solar Scarabs take it 2-0, head to our winner's side of the bracket. Camelot Kings fall down, loser's side of the bracket. That will do it for me and Trelly on the cast. We'll throw it back to J-Mac and Miff on the desk.
That's right, Solar Scarabs advance on to the winner's bracket. The EUSCC number 2 seeded team knocked down the Camelot Kings to the loser's bracket and are now 1 set away from qualifying to the SWC. And really, Game 2 felt like it was off the back of Apreel in a couple of these big team fights. A solo kill on a CaptainTwig by Gold Fury about 15 or so minutes in the game. And then, at the very end in that team fight, just dives right to the back line, kills off 1, waits for the team to rally around, picks up the double kill after. A strong Mercury performance in game number 1, repeated here in game number 2 for their jungler.
I mean, just top to bottom, it felt like the Solar Scarabs met the Camelot Kings everywhere on the map and outplayed them everywhere on the map. Every individual member brought everything they needed to find these dubs. And it's not just Apreel finding a solo kill on the CaptainTwig around the Gold Fury. I believe Deathwalker finds a solo kill on the CaptainTwig on right side tier 2 tower into the Phoenix. I believe CaptainTwig also ints twice into the tier 1 mid tower, trying to get things rolling as well. Just not the best performance for the Camelot Kings jungler. Going to need to find a bounce back on the loser side of the bracket because the Solar Scarabs proving as 2nd seed out of EU. This is not even the premier EU team, as 2nd seed that they can compete with the reigning world champions. I had not exactly been able to quantify how far they had fallen. I thought, you know, a rough couple of weeks leading up to this for the Camelot Kings, but, you know, they're playing against the best players in the world in the SPL. I thought SEC would struggle mightily against this team, and I didn't see it. I didn't see any struggle. They're not perspiring. These guys are chilling. Look, Deathwalker came up, said, I don't even know who the enemy support is. And did he need to? I don't think so.
I don't think you even saw the enemy support for most of these 2 games, if I'm being honest with you. But another one, I mean, Silence on the Sobek getting such great value on the beads, said, okay, well, I'll pill the bead so Apreel could just dive the backline. The carry doesn't have anything. Their supports don't have anything. This is the solo kill you were talking about by Deathwalker under the tier 2.
That mental crushes me for a season if that happens.
I don't know how I recover for something like that. We're going to see how the Camelot Kings team recover in the lower bracket.
Crumple
because
like
now it's going to
tinfoil.
be the Solar Scarabs who are out on top. Also, I got to give shouts to Apreel in the Aegis usage this game. So many clutch Aegises.
The Aegises from Apreel on Fear No Evils in particular. I believe there was 3 this game where he's like, my beads are down, it doesn't matter. I'll just Aegis on perfect timing. Ridiculous. He baited Twig like 4 times just with his own Aegis. It was crazy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure about 4,000 or 5,000 damage that Quig or that CaptainTwig could have put out during a Fear No Evil was just stopped by Apreel with that one single press of a button. Great performance out of the Solar Scarabs here, a 2-0 over the Camelot Kings to find themselves in the winner's bracket and one set away from the SWC, waiting for their winner of the next, or I'm sorry, I think that's going to be the first matchup tomorrow, so they're waiting for between the Hounds and the Wardens to see which two teams are going to be fighting for one of those first SWC spots out of this group stage. But a big win here for the Solar Scarabs, and going to be a tough one now for the Camelot Kings to have to fight back after a crushing loss here. Now have to fight through the lower bracket to go their way through. But we've been talking a lot about Apreel in his performance in the jungle, and now we get a chance to talk to him. It's Frog standing by for the post-game interview.
That's right, we've got Apreel standing by. Fantastic performance in set number 1. You guys, I mean, I got to ask you, this is your first time on land, first time ever coming in person to the studio. What are the vibes like in the booth? How does it feel to take away that first?
I mean, it was a long flight. Like, I come from Germany, like, it was 9 hours. It was not too pleasant, but since I arrived here, like, the people are here are pretty cool. It's pretty chill so far, and I'm happy that we won the set.
Yeah, I mean, you guys definitely, I mean, you especially, I think, brought a lot of great energy on the Mercury. Is that a signature pick for you, one that you'll continue to go back with? I think I heard you talking in between set 1 and set 2. You convinced that they weren't going to let you have it again.
Yeah, I was thinking they're not going to let me have it again because, like, we played so well on the objectives. Like, Mercury does that, like, I don't think any other god does that, and it's a good god. Like, I played him a lot. I didn't think they would give it to me again, but yeah, he's just really good at, like, killing FG and stuff really fast, and that's like our playstyle, so it just fits really good. So I'm actually surprised that I gave it again. Like,
yeah, I mean, you definitely look good on it. I think taking this win away, right, you're moving to the winner's side of the bracket. Only one more win to go to that World Championship. Rest of your group, right, Eldritch Hounds, Cowlin Wardens, do you have that match happens a little bit later on this weekend. Do you have a preference on who you think is going to take it, or who do you want to play?
Honestly, I don't really care. I don't want to, like, win anyways. I think we can beat both, so I don't really care who we play against.
A lot of confidence coming out from Apreel. Well, thank you so much. Congrats on the win. We'll throw it back to the desk.
That's right. Another congrats to the Solar Scarabs for their win here on day number 1 in the SWC group stages. Now moving on in the upper bracket into a qualifying matchup. That one will be a best of 5 for the qualifier to the SWC, but we still have some more best of 3s to go through. You'll see match number 4 in this bracket, Eldritch Hounds, Cowlin Wardens, our first matchup tomorrow. That one will still be best of 3, and I believe as well that match 6 with the Camelot Kings, and the loser of that will also be best of 3. But then best of 5 for the Solar Scarabs, waiting to see if they can qualify up into the SWC, awaiting the winner of the Hounds and the Wardens match over here in Group B. We can jump ourselves over into Group A, which will be our next matchup. We already saw one of the matches from Group A just earlier on. That was a 2-0 for the Highland Ravens over their opponents in the Shibalba Storm. But now we get to maybe the most anticipated matchup of this event, which is the Gilded Gladiators and Hex Mambo. And I think more than anything, it's the story that Hex Mambo have developed over 2 years against SPL teams.
A legacy franchise in the European SEC that has been dominating as of recent. Hex Mambo, not exactly what you would expect to see if you were watching last year during Worlds, but still a very, very strong team and the first seed out of the EUSCC. So these guys, on paper, are better than the Solar Scarabs, who just beat the reigning world champions. Scary thought for the Gilded Gladiators, and a tough matchup. I don't think this is a hot take. I think I speak with the authority of the community here when I say the Gilded Gladiators are the underdogs in this one.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, given that the Gilded Gladiators had a bit of a tough performance throughout the regular phase, only were able to find a single set win during all of that one, and Hex Mambo just being dominant throughout their regular phase of play, throughout their entire qualifiers. This is going to be a tough matchup for the SPL team. Our third and final matchup of today, the Gladiators and Hex Mambo, coming up right after this break.
There's nothing in this world more primal than my love for you. If you meet somebody else that's a rival, that much is true. Yeah, I know you said, baby, this is final, and I blame myself. All that's left of me now is an animal, and I cry for help. I wish my call's gonna reach you. Give it my all, 'cause I need you. Oh, let it go, let it go, let it go till I get you alone. I can't help but howl like a wolf, howl like a wolf. I wish my call's gonna reach you. Give Can you hear me now? I know it ain't over till it's over. Cause I'm still alive. If only you'd come a bit closer. Maybe I'll survive.